Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smudcast number 600. This is our celebration part one, as the title denotes. We are doing a two-parter for all the wonderful people that have come onto the Smudcast, hopefully in the past year, maybe even before. It's been a while, I can't remember them all. But we're going to have 30-minute segments going on for at least, I hope, 3 hours today, maybe 3 hours tomorrow, depending. And we're starting off with our good friend Hawk, who is having some potential technical problems, not unlike some of the potential technical problems he may be experiencing in the topic he's going to be discussing today. So hopefully we can not be discouraged by any of that today, and we can have a nice 30-minute segment. How's that?
Yeah, it should be all right.
Okay, and the topic of today is what
topic. The Callisto Protocol, that wonderful new game that everyone's really enjoying since it's the bestest thing ever.
Really? I haven't seen the Metacritic score from today. I'm sure it jumps up and down as more people play it. But do you know the rating, what it is right now these days? Is it like a...
I haven't got a clue. I've not actually looked at anyone else's reviews of this. Because I just wanted to go in, not completely blind, but as in to give my own personal opinion on the game. I'd also recently I found that a lot of people, especially on YouTube and review critics, are insane. So they don't give proper scores.
Well, they're not review bombing it, and I just checked out the PC one. The user score is about 4.9. And the average score, not only for users, but also for the critics, are around the 70s or 60s. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely say it's a middling game. It's there's a lot of wasted potential here. For the game, I'll definitely in number wise out of 10, 5.
Wow.
5, and then you could possibly push it up to a 6, if you were, generous, which I'm not. So
okay, so give us the rundown of the game. There's lots of people who are bombing it and not liking it for all kinds of technical reasons. But give me the story, the characters, the gameplay that's got to appeal to some people out there.
Well, it really, Callisto Protocol is really just. Literally Dead Space, but in a prison setting. So you obviously follow the character of Jacob, who is on the screen right now in the headgear. I think this looks really good, but it's a cutscene.
Yeah.
And they're okay with cutscenes, certain cutscenes, but as it goes on, it just gets worse and worse. So the story starts out, obviously, there's been a bio-terrorist attack on Europa, which is obviously one of the, I think it's moons of Titan. And obviously it's just security footage that Jacob and his co-pilot are watching as they're doing a delivery to Black Iron Prison, which is the setting. Next thing you know, they get boarded by someone who's accused of being the terrorist. Their ship crashes, and Jacob survives, but his co-pilot Max dies. And then he gets rescued by the staff of Black Iron Prison and gets incarcerated for some reason. And obviously you wake up again and the prison's being overrun by these creatures and you've got trying to escape. So that's the basic premise of the game. It's just trying to escape this prison and moon to escape from these monsters. So yeah, it's a very basic survival horror story, which has been done before, obviously, with the Dead Space series, since a lot of people who made Dead Space have gone on to this company. It's Crafton. to make this game.
Right.
And yeah, so that's the basic thing, and it fails a lot as a survival horror game.
Right. Now, on the screen, we're watching a video, a compilation of many of the death animations by the main character, which seems pretty weird. It's sometimes they look like, okay, there's this whole 10-second process, and then when he just gets hit and falls down and loses an arm or something, you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's not for like, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where the game is not scary. I'll just point that out. The game is the least scariest thing ever. I was laughing with most of these death animations, and it is quite difficult to die. It does take quite a bit to actually, lose your health and die. But no, there's no. There's no fear in this. I've actually only been frightened once while playing this game, and that was because I was walking down a corridor, and I heard this really weird, loud noise, and it sounded like it was like really close by and getting louder and louder, and I like panicked, and like I turned around, and it was actually my partner who'd bought a new steam cleaner, and that's the only time I got frightened, because I was like, oh my god, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? And it turned out to be something in my house.
So you're saying that all the lessons that came from Dead Space has either been neglected, forgotten, they just went, whatever, we're making a game.
It's like, just Ben, there's like quick time events where you've got to press, obviously, triangle, as is on PlayStation, or Y, and it's not frightening when you're in a quick time event. Do you know what I mean? You just press it. You're more concentrated on pressing like the Y button, and it's also, I find this with like anything with like melee. Once you have melee in a game, you don't worry about the enemies getting close to you, because you can just get a stick and beat it to death.
Isn't that the selling point of the game, though? They have melee features. It's so you start doing, so you can dodge, so you can go left or right, and once you realize that most enemies attack by swinging their left arm rightwards and then the right arm left, then you start to realize, it's the same pattern each time, so you can sort of like sort of like beat it like that, and then you just like smash the right trigger button to beat these aliens to death with. So yeah, this animation we're watching right now, there's a quick time event to hit the triangle button. The user is not hitting it, and this guy is just gnawing away at this guy's neck.
Yeah, and so also these enemies here you can't dodge, or you can't even do anything. So there's, it's not, and it's also so it's not frightening when that happens. And a lot of it's quick time events with everything. So, I mean, this isn't frightening. This what we're watching is not frightening.
It's kind of goofy because he's getting his head bitten off, and you're just like, oh, all right, that's bad.
All you're thinking is, great, I've got to restart this bit.
Yeah.
Another thing, obviously, with the combat is once you get to parts where there's more than 2 enemies, it just fails and clunks completely. So
this is new. There's a bunch of,
what's that?
I don't know, a bunch of like tentacles come out of this creature's mouth and start poking you in the face. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Well, yeah.
And of course, you can't. The guy doesn't press triangles. He wants us to see the death animation, but it's like, that's kind of weird.
I'll give them something. It's like there's a few good, interesting monster, designs, but
just fell on top of him. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, but the thing is, these are also really drawn out. So he's just sat there like, oh, this is supposed to be like scary, like that. Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah, we're also going at half speed, so just to fill up the time. But it just looks so funny to see this creature come out of nowhere and just eat your face.
These creatures as well that's attacking, they can go invisible. It doesn't really matter. You just shoot them. There's just they're just annoying. Everything about this is just annoying. It's I think as my girlfriend said when she's seen me playing it, she goes, "All I hear from you is just sighs and groans and just." Oh. She goes, "You really are slogging through this." I'm like, "Yep." It's like there's really. I mean, look at it. It's like he's like plasticine in half of these.
His head keeps popping off. It's kind of funny, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like a leg just, yeah, but it's not scary. So there's a lot of I'm putting quotation marks jump scares in this game, which are the things coming out and just like screaming at you. But also like everything is Dead Space. 100% everything's Dead Space. Even so, your co-pilot gets killed by in a crash.
Right.
So he becomes a hallucination that haunts you during the game. In the exact same style, but Nicole haunts you in Dead Space 2 with hallucination.
This is a scene.
Even down.
I'm just if you're watching the thing on screen, which is the waterway. Like he's sliding down a waterway.
Oh yeah, I've died like that. This entire scene, I don't know why we've added this scene in. Also, this wasn't fun. This was boring. You're just sliding constantly, and it gets so fast to the point where you are just getting lucky with not hitting things.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember playing the remakes of the Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider games. There were so many scenes where it's just like you're sliding or you're moving, and she gets impaled on spikes because you missed a jump or whatever it was, and you're like, "This looks just like that."
Yeah, like here, like it's showing this thing jumping on it. This is meant to be a very scary scene. I was sighing and just going, right, okay, quick time event. Let's go. That's it. That's all I care about. Yeah, that's all I was caring about. It didn't, make me go, oh no, enemy, what am I going to do? It's like, yeah, just.
Jesus.
Oh, what was it Gar 004? Yeah, he's the guy in Discord who's been playing this. He said he's finished it. Wow. I've been talking to him about it. He says he actually really enjoyed it, but yeah, good for him that he enjoyed it. I found so many errors. Like my game crashed on me, and the reason it crashed was because.
He punched this guy's head off. Like, what?
Yeah. But, the reason the game crashed on me is because there's a bit where there's some mist or smoke being made in this corridor, and the game just couldn't handle it.
Oh, okay. So
it couldn't handle mist, and then it crashed. I was like, all right, cool. So I had to, like, restart and go through the exact same bit again, but all the mist had disappeared because the game was like, "Oh no, we can't be doing this." So, I think as you notice, I'm not talking much about the story because this game really lacks in a solid story. I've been playing it for quite some time, and I still haven't really got into much of the story because it just. This is how much of a slog it is. Like you'll spend ages just trying to get to a tram, and if you don't make it, end up outside, and this is when you start getting like the suit, which is on all the stuff, and in the snow when you're outside. But that is such a long way into the game. I'm just like, oh god, just don't know how much more I can take of this.
This guy just walked into a grinder, and his arm gets stuck, and he gets his whole body pulled in. It's like, what the? That's almost comical. Oh my god.
But yeah, it's yeah,
It's like a gore fest, but you just don't care. It's like, okay.
yeah. You just at this point of view, just a bit like, okay, right, cool. I mean, I've played games that are more gorier than this, and it's like, yeah, I get it. There's plasticine blood. I mean, look at it. It looks like someone's spilling like a box of crayons everywhere, like Play-Doh. You know what I mean?
I've seen at least 2 or 3 animations which were the same with an enemy that was just like a more beefier version of the same model attacking the main character. And half the time, his head is getting torn off or exploded.
Yeah, they seem to be very interested in that.
And the skull, the skull being destroyed. I was like, why is the skull always being destroyed? What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, his head got decapitated. You're like, okay, that's fine. It's fine. All right, so aside from the killer, crazy death animations, what else about this game is at least, fun? Let's just say what's fun about this game?
What's fun? Well, the guy who played Liam in Mass Effect Andromeda dies.
Oh,
that's a positive.
Wow.
As soon as I heard his voice, I knew exactly who it was. I was like, "Oh, fuck's sake, no, not him. Anybody else." He's literally just playing an older looking Liam.
Oh dear.
So it's just like, oh god, and he's like, his name's Elias, and he helps you get out, and then he dies. Like really, like stupidly, and it's obviously to force you to team up with the strong female character, Danny, who, as I've been told now, and it actually helped me, like, will prove my point. The very first cutscene is you see her on Europa after a terrorist attack, and she gets videoed and accused of being a terrorist. And the minute I saw that, I knew she was not the terrorist, and she'd been scapegoated for it or something, blamed, and that she'd actually be innocent.
Okay.
And I thought, well, she's obviously going to be, actually turn out to be innocent and actually be a good guy. And lo and behold, she is. Such, interesting fucking, story. So she's the reason you crash on the moon anyway and get arrested. So that's nice. So you're already rooting for her after she's, caused all that. And then I've met her twice, and each time she's been a massive bitch to me and betrayed me and left me for dead. And yet, from what I've been told by people who are further along, she's like one of the main characters and the person you're meant to be rooting for.
Really? Okay.
And it's like, right, cool. I don't really want to carry on.
Thanks, Gabe.
I don't really. Yeah, so from what I've been told and also reading up on, she survives and gets out because Jacob, the main character, sacrifices himself so that she can.
What? Oh.
And I'm a bit like, right, well, this really makes me not want to carry on playing this fucking game, but, I guess strong female character. You know what I mean?
I guess there's no Callisto Protocol 2 then if the main character just dies.
Well, it ends the exact same, well, in a similar way to how Dead Space 1 ends, as in he answers a message from someone. The message ends and then a monster jumps at the screen, like the way that Dead Space 1 ends. And it's like, ooh, there could be a sequel. And I'm just a bit like, I don't really care. If it's anything like this, it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
Another major problem, there's no map to this game.
Oh, boy.
So you've got no way of really knowing which way to go. And it doesn't matter for a lot of the times, as in, like, it's just corridors. But sometimes, like, corridors lead to points of no return. So you'll end up like having to choose between two ways, and one way could be like a little secret area you can find stuff in, and the other way leads to a cutscene. So you miss out on loads of gear. And it doesn't tell you where you're going. Also, with objectives, it doesn't really tell you where objectives are to actually even go to. So you spend most of your time wandering around waiting for a button prompt to say that you're in the right place.
So they eliminated any kind of notification for a map system, where to go, what to do.
Yeah.
You're just wandering about in a level.
Yeah, really, you are. It's like in this bit here that's on with the gameplay, obviously he's in the snow. Later on, you find this person that goes, find some way to open the door to help Officer Wayne. So you go outside, it doesn't even tell you where to go. And next thing, if you spend too long, like things attack you and kill this guy, but you don't know whether you could actually have saved that person. And it's like, I didn't know what to do here. I could have just stood around doing, fuck all. And I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. Like, you'll wander around, and it's only until you come across like a button prompt that you'll be like, oh, I meant to go this way. Obviously, on the gameplay that's being shown right now, this is up to where I've actually got to just before the Smudcast. And if you just want to pause the video, Smud,
sure.
You'll see obviously all these frozen monsters and everything like that. Anybody who's had any idea of the game will know that not all of them are going to be frozen dead and they'll attack. You know what I mean? So it's like, right, cool. So I went down one bit in a little bit to attack, and one jumped out. And it's like, oh, scary! It's supposed to be scary. With me, it's like, no, I knew it was going to happen. They're literally telegraphing that this is going to happen. There's no way.
Yeah, I'm assuming that they wanted to make another survival horror space game akin to Dead Space, but they wanted to focus on melee. They wanted to focus on closer fighting, scary bits.
I get that, but the problem is once melee gets involved, things become a lot less frightening because you can beat stuff to death with a big stick.
Yeah, and he pulls out a stick on his back like it's like this billy club or what the hell you call it.
Yeah, it's like no offense, but if Freddy Krueger came up to you and you knew you could beat him to death with a baseball bat, he's not scary anymore. Because you can just beat him to death with a baseball bat.
It seems almost primitive. Like, I have a big club. It's like, no problem. Okay.
It's like imagine like Godzilla, and all you had was a baseball bat, but that baseball bat could kill God. You're like, oh my god, we could just beat him to death. There's no need for like tanks and guns. Just beat him to death with a large stick. And that's the problem with the game. You're just beating stuff to death, and you're like, oh right, okay. There's no fear.
And the whole premise is you're a delivery man and you get stuck on a prison ship thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
A prison colony. Yeah, that's it. Obviously, there's a conspiracy that the warden is actually using the aliens because it's the next step of human evolution. To be honest with you, just look up the Dead Space story, and it's the Callisto Protocol story. Like almost word for word, and you're like, oh right, okay. Even the warden, who's the bad guy, he's pretty much a carbon copy of Director Tideman from Dead Space 2 in how he talks and communicates with the protagonist.
All right.
So it's just like copy and paste stuff.
In that note, here's a super chat from God004. Where is it? They stole. Sorry, this game is to Dead Space what Evil Within is to Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, yeah. It wants to be the next Dead Space, but it doesn't know what made Dead Space an interesting and fun game.
Okay.
As Igo Dreamer says, yeah, once you get more than 2 enemies in the room, it's like you get caught middle of dodging animation, and you proceed. Yeah, I've died like 4 times because I get stunned pretty much by getting hit because there's more than 2 enemies swinging at me, and you can't dodge them, or even your block doesn't work, and you just end up dying because the game cannot handle more than 2 enemies at one time. It just cannot handle the idea that there's 4 enemies in this room. It's like, how do we? Oh no, you're just gonna die unless you've got your gun out, and it's just, yeah. Also, unlike Dead Space, and even though we keep trying to say it, there's no specific way to kill the enemies quickly. As in Dead Space, obviously you've got to dismember the necromorph. So you can't just shoot their bodies. With this, it's just whack them repeatedly or just shoot them a lot.
Oh.
So there's nothing there. I've also noticed there's a bit of a glitch, especially in my game, where if you whack an enemy into a wall, it'll start a death animation, a kill animation for that enemy.
Really?
Where you break its leg. Yeah, so it's made it a bit easier for me.
You just no-clip them into the wall and they just die.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing, which is actually against their terms of service, which I've just realised.
What?
You have to sign a terms of service at the beginning.
Okay, but what does that have to do with
there's a privacy policy, code of conduct, and the terms of service policies you've got to sign.
I don't... What? Why?
Code of conduct, I can't use insulting nicknames. Okay.
Because it's online? Is that the reason?
No, there's nothing online with this game.
Wait, so it's a single-player offline game.
Yeah.
But when you start the game up, you can't use Big Dick 69 or something like that.
But I don't know what for. But it's if you gonna stream the game, you've got to put in big letters. This gameplay footage is used without the permission of KraftCon and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Wow.
And it's a bit like they said. For people who've bought the digital download copies, KraftCon retain the rights to just cut access to content without forewarning.
What?
And it's just seriously, if you actually read through the terms, listen, even my rent agreement didn't have this many fucking things in it as I was signing up to. I can't use homophobic slurs in the game.
On stream or whenever you're showcasing it.
Or just at home when I'm playing.
You can't swear, okay?
It's just...
Well, let me read some super chats. And
sorry, stop that. Isn't signing the TOS just part of the course nowadays? Not for this. This is literally a single-player game where you are being told that if you say the word faggot in your own home, you're breaching their code of conduct. So if you got frightened, they went, "Oh fuck me, you fucking faggot," like that, or "Oh fuck me, you fucking something," or whatever. KraftCon are really angry at you.
I have got to read a news article, and I've never heard of that. I gotta check out a news article. I might even make a video on that. It's so stupid.
if you can find them up, if you can actually find the terms of service of Callisto Protocol, read through them and just see.
Okay, that sounds ridiculous. All right, I'll check it out. We got to get going, though. I'm going to read some super chats and bring in our next guest. Here is Gaw again, 004. They stole the drill platform ride where you're sworn by enemies from Dead Space 2.
Oh. Great. Even more crap later on I've got to go through.
Oh, yeah, you're going to reckon. Oh, geez, that's sad. Oh, and we got a donation from Mr. Gingaman, because he's not with us today for whatever reason. It's sad that games like the 1998 Resident Evil 1 on PS1, the vastly unnecessary Doom 3, and Five Nights at Freddy's as a whole provide more scares than a AAA game released in 2022.
Yeah. If you're looking for scares, don't play this game. Listen, I'm not the bravest person, and I don't do horror movies and shit like that. But this is just like a walk in the park. I'm sighing more than anything. I'm just okay.
Okay.
I'm uninterested. Monster. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Oh. All right. Well, I'm going to welcome our next guest, Dollface, whenever he's ready to go. Hopefully he's
He's right around the corner. Otherwise, it's just
I know
going
he's
to be.
there. Yeah, I can see he's there. He's definitely there. He's not listening to me right now.
Just doesn't want to join.
He's hiding behind.
But to end on my point is, if I'm going to recommend this game, hi Dolphy, see you all right?
Hello.
How's it going?
Am I audible?
You are indeed, sir. How's it going?
Cool. I'm good.
Well, we're gonna say goodbye to Hawk. Hawk, did you want to have any last comments there? You're about Callisto Protocol.
I'd recommend everyone at least watch the game, watch some gameplay, just to see how bad it is, and how unscary it is. Because especially with the Dead Space remake coming out, it'll be good to have a comparison of those two games. See how it should have been, how it's done a bit better with Dead Space remake than this game. So, all right, that's it. Don't buy it, just watch it.
All right, thanks so much for your time, Hawk. That was just about 30 minutes, but holy hell, that was a bore fest, it sounds like.
Hopefully the next thing's better.
Yeah, jeez, man. Okay, well.
Good luck for the rest of the 600, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, sir. Have yourself a good evening.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, Mr. Dollface, how do you do, sir? How's it going?
Yes, good. Yes, imagine playing video games in the current year.
Imagine. Tough. It's tough. They're making all these AAA titles, and you're like, should I spend money on food or should I spend money on gas? Oh, wait, the new Dead Space clone just came out. What should I do? I don't know.
Yeah. Games have declined.
I've had a lot of tactical role-playing games from Japan come out this year, and I'm trying to get through them all. Some of them are remakes and really well done. Some of them are new, not so well done. It's as if games from 20 years ago are just better. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I feel like they're almost trying to, it's not even just microtransactions. It's even games without microtransactions just have you have your kind of Ubisoft style, open world things. We're just going to put a whole load of markers. Going to put a whole load of meaningless markers. You can go to all these markers in the map. Get all the markers. Do it. Yeah.
And the new Callisto Protocol is the exact opposite. There is no map, so you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to change topics from gaming to one of I wouldn't say a niche sci-fi series, but definitely a very misunderstood or not as well popularized as other shows in the early 2000s, and that is Farscape. So
yes,
we've got a video. Do you want to watch the video? Do you want to talk about it? Do you just want it in the background?
Just without the audio, you can just kind of have it on.
Cool.
Yeah, in the background.
All right. So tell me about Farscape. Why is it one of your favorite sci-fi shows of all time?
Yeah. So, I've watched a few sci-fi shows. I haven't watched. I've only watched the original series of Star Trek, Jim's death. So, 1992, you have Muppet Christmas Carol. 96, you have Muppet Treasure Island. Which that one in particular was just on repeat. In my house as a child, that was just over and over and over again. And then in the same year that Farscape came out in I think December of 1999. So I guess Brian Henson, I think it was a different guy who came up with it, but basically it seems like they were just on that kind of sci-fi vibe at the time. A slight bump on their head, or a slightly different shape, or they'll have maybe slightly weird eyes, or weird cheekbones. But Farscape, they'll be literally a complete puppet, a completely different creature that's not even the same. You couldn't have a human actor occupying the same role,
Right.
So in the main cast, you have Rigel is like the main kind of. He's not in every episode, but he's pretty much he's a member of the main cast. So he's just this like what is it? He's the Hynerian Dominar, and he was in prison for however many cycles they call it. That's another thing about the shows. They have all this like made up lingo almost, where instead of like normal swears, they have their own like made up slang and swear words basically. That basically from context you like pick up. Oh, okay, so like Frel means fuck, and Dren means shit. Like that kind of thing. So that's another like just an aspect of the world. But yeah, but I just love Rigel. Like Rigel's so good. And also I watched that recently, Hellraiser, because I was getting into all of the like 80s horror movies. And there is a little bit of that kind of like sexual energy in certain aspects of the show, but also in Hellraiser. So I feel like there's a little bit of that aspect, especially if you look at what Scorpius looks like. He's just in this like full like
5 came out like at 94, 95.
Yeah.
And the practical effects were they weren't non-existent, but they were never near the level of Farscape, where everything is completely texturized and moving. And
the thing with Farscape as well is like the only officially human character is John Crichton, like the main character. He's the only one who's actually he's the only human,
right?
And so all of you have in season 1, you have Zan, Rigel, Dargo. And then Pilot. So Pilot's another one of the big puppet characters, like the main like puppet characters. Who's it's only a few tens of thousands of dollars, but so that kind of thing. But with Rigel, they have like, so there's the guy with the hand for like the eyebrows and like the mouth, and then there's a different certain combinations of movements so that those are just like ready to go. But yeah, so it's just really, really impressive. That I think it doesn't matter how good CGI is, it never to watch. Like it's even though it's kind of weird. Like there's an awareness that it's a puppet, but that makes it more impressive. Like it's the same way like with a lot of this like AI art now. Right. That we've been seeing. It doesn't matter how good it is. It's always better to see like a painting in person.
I like to compare it to the practical effects of The Last Jedi, where they spent a boatload of money, but it's like, hey, put the money where it's supposed to be, which is practical effects, even if the story is
With the puppetry and everything, there's a something you get out of the feeling that you could actually touch it. That is really hard to replicate with CGI. The fact that the actual tactile feeling that you can feel that's an actual physical thing. And
the story of Farscape is, I wouldn't say it's complex. What ends up happening is getting a little convoluted because it's mostly episodic to my knowledge, right?
Yeah, I mean it definitely starts out more episodic. I mean it's kind of similar to the way like even like going out of sci-fi, but like even like Buffy, if you look at like the first season, it's really episodic, but then more plot lines start to recur as you go on, and then there are like seeds that are planted that become big storylines later on. But it's the first time you meet Scorpius, it's not like you don't know that he's going to be like this main villain, for most of the series. You're just like, oh, it's a he's a villain, right? But you don't realize how significant he's going to be.
Yeah. I remember because this was like was it 99, 2000, and there were a lot of sci-fi shows, and I think the Kevin Sorbo one was up, Earth Final Conflict, Andromeda, it was called Andromeda. Earth Final Conflict came out, Voyager was still going on, X-Files, and I think Millennium was still going on. Sliders was a thing, Roswell was a thing, like all these old shows. And Red Dwarf, of course, was still on. That's been going on for years before that as well. So there was a lot of competition to watch these. Like, what was your favorite show? And I do recall that Farscape was probably the weirdest one. Not the scariest or the goofiest, but just every episode was like, that is like, what is going on anymore? I don't remember what happened last episode. Does that translate? I don't think so. It's just totally new in this scenario. So, but it felt alien. I remember the first part of a show was this guy was cleaning his teeth with this little worm creature. You're like, what the minty? You're like, what? What's happening? So there was lots of jokes and lots of action, lots of violence, and everything felt organic. Everything felt alive. Like the aliens on the ship itself was a living being, the navigator. All of this was all connected in this sort of living world that felt real, as alien and weird as it was. And even the intro music was like strange and unusual sounding to listen to. So I always thought that was if I was a sci-fi guy, I'd be like, I'd really love watching that show outside of, let's say, I don't know, The Outer Limits or whatever else was on at the time. I think we've lost Dollface. Are you still there, buddy? Dollface. Oh, he's typing. He's just not responding. I guess he has some problems with his microphone, which is... Well, Dollface, you could always reconnect, so let's try that. All right, here we go. Da-da-da-da-da. I see you. I still don't hear you, sir. Weird stuff. Let me try changing the region for you. Let's go to Hong Kong. All right, we're in Hong Kong. Can you talk now, sir? Sir? There you are.
Hello?
Hey.
I don't know what happened there. That was really weird.
Yeah, I just switched the region and you're back. So, hey, how's it going?
Yeah, that was weird. When did you last hear me?
I was talking for a good minute, so I don't know.
Yeah, I heard you. But I don't know when you didn't. I don't know when you stopped hearing me.
Okay. Well, considering the amount of people doing makeup, like it must take like hours and hours for all these guys to get into a suit and get makeup done, and
sure, yeah.
Like that is the biggest problem I've heard for people like Bill Mooney on Babylon 5. Like the amount of time you had to spend, or Quark had to spend, Armin Shimmerman as Quark, to get set up and all that prosthetics and makeup and spray paints.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And like with Dargo, it's like an actual like helmet.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally like it's like a helmet, and then they have to like encase it. You know, so it's but that's like part of the, you know, admiring the dedication to go in and film and have to sit for, I don't know, like how many hours, you know, anytime you have to film a scene.
Right.
You know, and the fact that, you know, with Game of Thrones you have like what's her name, Emilia, what's her name?
Emilia Clarke?
Daenerys, yeah.
Daenerys.
Emilia Clarke, yeah. For a minute there, I wasn't sure if it was Emilia, but yeah. But yeah, so she was had an issue with wearing the contacts, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of get it, but then you watch like this, like Farscape, and you're like, maybe the contacts wouldn't be that hard.
I thought it would have been her hair, because her hair is like that platinum blonde sort of color.
Yeah. But it was because there's supposed to have purple eyes in the books, and then they just stopped doing that. But yeah. What else can we talk about? We've got 10 minutes. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those shows that's very memorable because of the way it's produced, the quality of all the shots. The story is he's a stranded spaceman.
I could just rewatch the pilot episodes because it's just so like it's such a perfect like it would make a really good like D&D campaign. You know what I mean? Like it's such a perfect setup. You know, for like an RPG or something. It is a little bit like Skyrim. It's like you finally woken up. You know, where he wakes up and initially he can't under robes, and then they eventually can understand. Like they start, you stop hearing these other like languages, and then eventually they make sense. Which I thought the idea of the translator microbes is kind of interesting. In terms of like just an excuse for characters to understand each other, no matter where they go.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Babelfish in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, like it's just a nice like catch-all. Like, okay, everyone can understand each other, and also they all have Australian accents. I don't know if the translator microbes do that, but it just happens that everyone has Australian accents. But yeah, although I will say in terms of like the translator microbes thing, one thing in Stargate that I kind of miss is in the movie of Stargate, where there's no like magic translation, like he goes through the Stargate to this to these like humans who've been taken to this planet, and they obviously don't speak English. Right, they have their own like language. So he just has to use his like knowledge of languages in general to communicate with them. And I thought that was really, really interesting. It's really interesting to actually not have some like magic solution to that. But for the purposes of like Farscape, but I do like I get it as a contrivance, but I do like that explanation. I like that it's kind of a biological phenomenon rather than like a technological thing, which is another like a general Farscape thing. Is there's a lot more like biological sci-fi things rather than here's a piece of just like machinery.
Yeah, as I said before, the ship is organic. The navigator's connected to the ship. He's an alien. There's all these little aliens, like you said, the one that gives you translations, the one that cleans your teeth. They're all kinds. It's all organic. Everything is literally some living being that does some sort of symbiosis with the people living on the ship or in other parts of the galaxy. And that to me was really neat. Kind of the opposite of, let's say, like watching Lex, which was, I wouldn't say body horror, but it focused on like gore, but and sex, but it was like always off to the side. And Farscape was like, no, this is technically a family show, but there's lots of like stuff going on, like violence and killing.
There's a lot of sexual energy, a lot of sexual vibes.
Oh yeah, it's everyone's just they're not making out with each other, but they're pretty much getting it on eventually with each other in one or two seasons.
Yeah, it's very, very horny.
Yeah.
There's also the episode where they go to this like basically like nightclub planet, and they end up like in this window in like lingerie. Like, yeah, it's just this like big like circular window, and everyone's just looking at them, and it's like, oh god.
So now we're looking at some animatronics they're doing for I don't know which alien, but
yeah, this is Rigel. This is for him like picking stuff up and doing like particular things with his hands, because I think they also as well they say in this as well. So he has like a little like. There's a little glove that they can put on, so that where they would just put like a human hand, like just a person would just put their hand up, and there's this like tiny glove, as well. So it's like another like option for doing like particular like manual things with the hands. It's just like the artistry of it is like so good.
Yeah, nowadays we do have actually really fascinating tech in automated robots, and I think was it Chicago University? I can't remember which. I don't remember the name. Of course, we have Elon Musk and his pseudo robot thing, which he showed off last month. But yeah, we have all kinds of amazing articulation nowadays with robots, and for them to say, "Hey, we're doing animatronics or versions of R2D2," whereas this is like, no, this is a huge series of puppets and puppeteers and electronics and robotics, and software and hardware. It's like, oh my god, just to get this one guy to look right and act right.
It's literally like a team. It's like a team actually controlling all like different parts of him, because you can't like control like the face and or like the mouth and the eyebrows and the different hands and sometimes the feet as well, and it just all like even the ears like move like independently. So it's everything. It's just the effort. I just appreciate the effort.
And there they're doing with this flying little chair. They got a little lever going. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, no, it's a wild. It's a different experience, and that's why I say if you like science fiction for the sake of science fiction, not for like Star Trek science fiction or Babylon 5 stories, but it's so different and it's so creative. That's why I was impressed with it. I never watched all of it. I saw the last few episodes because it was connected to the first episode, which I thought was cool. So they sort of resolve a lot of things together, and they focus on what makes Crichton so special and why, which I thought was cool because you're supposed to do that with your heroes or your main characters reasonably well, and they did a very good job. So I think
about like John Crichton in particular, the reason why he's such a great protagonist, it is kind of like an isekai type of thing where he's like he's from the real world, whereas like the characters in Star Trek are not from the real world. You know what I mean? Like they already live in sci-fi land. Yeah, and also the Looney Tunes episode, season 3, episode 16, where it just goes like fully. It's not all animated, but there are like animated parts, where it's like him. And I don't know how spoilery you want to be, but it gets very like, So the character's called Harvey, which is like in his mind, and it just gets very very wacky, very zany. So it's just a very cool show, very 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 cool show, very creative show.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your effort there, Dollface. It's always good to hear from you. I know you're busy. And we always have to put our guys in Europe first because of the time zone differences. So I do appreciate your time. And we're going to get our next panelist on. Where is he? Mr. Crazy Philosopher. Okay. I'm just going to wait for him to come on. I'll load up his video. But I think everyone should probably, now that we have time, well, even we had 2 years worth of time to chill out. But definitely check out Farscape. I think it's 3 seasons long. And
I think it's four seasons plus the Peacekeeper. What's it called? Peacekeeper Wars, I think it's called.
Okay.
Which is the thing that they made. So after season 4, they made the Peacekeeper Wars to kind of finish it off.
All right. Well, just chilling, waiting for Mr. Philosopher to pop on. And hopefully we'll hear from you in the future. I know you're busy again with work and life. I know it's been busy for everyone this past few months. I don't know why it's got more hectic than usual. And I can't seem to find time in my day, but I do appreciate that you guys can come out and chat and say hello. You're still around. You're still kicking. You're not gone. You're not dead. you're still happy to talk about geeky stuff. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. I'll pop off.
All right. Have yourself a great evening, sir.
Bye.
All right, so I'm waiting for Crazy Philosopher to pop on. He is in the chat. He can't see the call for some reason. I don't know why. Don't know what to say, sir. You just sort of have to join the call. Let's try again. There we go. There you are.
Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. Had to disconnect the call and call back everyone, but there we are. Okay, good stuff. So, yeah, we're going to be talking. What's the actual topic?
Philosophy.
Philosophy. Okay. Now, you're a bit soft, so if you could, like, boost up your mic or scream into your mic, whatever you got going.
On it.
Still coming in pretty soft
better?
there. It's. I have you at 200%. You're very, very soft still.
How about now?
Nope.
Okay, wait. Here we go. Better?
It's still pretty soft.
So I'm putting myself at 200 as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, I could hear you. It's just very soft. Hope everyone else can hear you.
Okay,
All right.
that's strange.
Okay. So, what is the topic? Is this general philosophy, or is there something specific?
Well, I just thought we'd chat a bit about philosophy in general.
Sure. I studied philosophy in university. I studied it in high school. I've got some of my books lying around. It's a thing I always jump into when I got time to contemplate life. So what books what philosophies do you actually adhere to? Let's start there.
If you're talking about life philosophies, it's Buddhism.
Ooh, that's a whole practice. That's more than just a philosophy.
Yes, I've been practicing Buddhism for 12 years now.
Oh, wow.
I think. Yeah, 12, yeah. For the first couple of years, well, it started actually with me just getting interested in the idea of the 5 elements. And so I started reading a book about that. And that just had a shit ton of meditation and yoga practices in it. And I thought to myself, well, why not try them? And I did for a very long time, and they helped me a lot. And then I got more and more interested in the actual philosophy and started reading books about Buddhist philosophy. And when I just read the ideas and concepts, I was like, oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. So I didn't know what they were called, but I knew the concepts from practice.
Okay,
As
so
strange as that may sound.
was that formal teaching, or you just picked up books and knew what you were already doing and just kept going?
So I never went to like a formal school or with masters. I had sometimes went to events where Buddhist masters were there, talked to them and stuff like that. But it was more from books from a specific master from a specific Tibetan school, the Dunn Buddhist school. It's called.
Okay. And that's the flavor of Buddhism, not like Zen Buddhism, which is more Japanese.
Yeah, that's the flavor of Buddhism that I practice.
Okay.
But overall, just in terms of other philosophies, I'm generally interested in basically almost all of philosophy, just because I'm curious how people think, what they thought, how they argue. And I also did study philosophy at university, though I never got a degree in anything.
I see.
And you?
For me, it was, well, I did at least 2 years of philosophy at York University with psychology. So it was pretty much hand in hand, because you're learning about epistemology and how we learn, and then you're also figuring out how we behave. And that's kind of like, you see a lot of overlap with like Abraham Maslow, the hierarchy of needs, and then you have the categorical imperative by Kant, and all these other ways. Yeah, it sounds like they're completely different, but when you talk about ethics, it's like, well, human behavior is ethical, and sometimes it isn't. And you're just like, why is that? And you go through the reasoning behind it, and then you find psychological reasoning behind your behavior, which is not just a hierarchy of needs. There's a hierarchy of qualities or values, and that's, I believe, DeMartini. He's a well-known psychologist these days, who talks about finding not your motivation, but finding why you do things. So the concept of just spontaneous action. And because, like, say you like playing video games, everyone here likes playing video games. They're fun. We grew up with them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have to think about why should we play. I got stuff to do, but I could really chill out for 2 hours, play a video game. And that's the joy itself. It's the actual action of doing the thing which is a priority to you. It doesn't matter what it is, even if it's work, even if it's like exercise, which is a lot of work. You still do it because it's a thing that's in your hierarchy, and it's up there with fun, with food, with sleep, with money making, whatever it is that you need in your life. So for whatever reason, because we were raised that way, or we grew up with a Nintendo, and I grew up with Nintendo. I don't know about you. I had PlayStation.
Well, as I grew up with different systems, but the very first system I ever played is the original Game Boy.
Oh, really? Wow. The original.
Yeah. Even though I was born in 1995, we kind of lagged behind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the original Game Boy and then Game Boy Color and everything, which is why I have always been very much into handheld gaming, and which is why I'm celebrating the Switch so much these days.
Yeah. I know that because my brother and his kids come over and they bring the Switch over, and I'm just like, wow, that's cool. You can just play it right there.
But yeah, just to my interest in philosophy was actually started in high school by one of my teachers. I went in it's so-called Freifach. So it's it is a subject, but you're not gonna get any tests or anything for it, and it was just always after school hours. It's just a group of students who wanted to do it, so we had the subject of philosophy and religion, and we could just talk about whatever we wanted. We did Nietzsche for an entire semester.
Wow.
We also sometimes watched South Park and discussed certain like the one episode where you have a dogmatic agnostic, which is an impossibility in real life. And stuff like that. And then later on at uni, I did study 4 years of philosophy, I think, but I never did particularly take classics. I did some fundamental stuff like formal logic and other stuff in logic, but then also philosophy of the mind, philosophy of human action. So it's just this spread of different things.
Yeah, I remember doing the empiricists, 3 empiricists, the main ones. We did some of the Enlightenment period. I think Spinoza popped up a few times.
Oh, I like Spinoza.
Yeah, everyone that teaches philosophy, it jumps from Plato, Thomas Aquinas, then Spinoza. And you're like, what? How does that connect? I had a lot of tutorial leaders which were all over the place, and I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. One thing which was very fortuitous for me is my main subject was English languages. And mostly the English linguistics, so language science, and it was extremely helpful with reading scientific philosophy, so scientific literature in philosophy, because very often if you have an extremely good understanding of grammar, you're going to understand these texts much better, because people sometimes get lost in confusions where they don't really know the relations of syntax, so they think, it could mean that, when you just know the rules of the language. You specifically know it can't mean that because of relation between words. So that was very fun for me.
Yes, Leibniz, Wittgenstein, Kripke, Frege, like those are the ones that I remember reading. That was part of philosophy of logic and language. Science wasn't that big for me. I didn't really study that far. Hume was the big one there, Descartes a little bit, Aristotle, of course. But
I absolutely adore Descartes' metaphysical argument. I love it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love it because to me it's just a big question in philosophy is always the what can we know and what can't we know. And there's always the big thing of saying, oh, just because we can't arrive at the truth, there is no truth. It's a very modern thing that people love to say.
Right.
And to me, the metaphysical argument is one point when you can say, no, we know one specific truth that you cannot deny, and that's your own existence.
Right. And
And that's why I love that argument so much.
well, there are those philosophers that, well, I think every philosopher has those moments where they have that one comment or one phrase which gets remembered because they're defining not a thing which is a true thing, but which is a question which changes how we look at the entire category of metaphysics or epistemology.
Yeah.
And Descartes was one of them, for sure. Kant was one of them, and Hume was a big one for me. If you're studying philosophy of science or psychology, or you're studying just life in general, he will pop up in your brain every now and again with Kant will pop up a lot more because he's always defining what is a posteriori and what is a priori. And even some of my professors are like, well, he wasn't perfect. And I was like, what do you mean? And they never told me what it was. They never told me where Kant was wrong. I was like, come on, you got to tell me. He's like, no, you got to study.
You have to read the one paper by Kant. I can't say its name on YouTube because its name is the N-word.
Yeah.
Where he describes how black people come into existence. That is an interesting paper.
Oh dear. Yeah.
No, one of the reasons why I started to like the metaphysical argument by Descartes so much is because a lot of people in surrounding me, not specifically of the philosophy department, but especially in the English department, were just massive fans of postmodernism.
Oh my God.
And just one of the main beliefs of postmodernism is that there's no such thing as truth, and you can't prove anything that exists. And Descartes' metaphysical argument can definitely prove that something exists. So I always like to throw that in their face, and they just go like, "Oh yeah, wait."
I luckily did not encounter any postmodernists that was. I think that would take at least a third or fourth year course to get there, and I was only in first and second year, so yeah.
Oh, they're horrible.
Yeah, no. It was like
they're horrible to read.
Yeah, we got a new dean of philosophy, and he was this brilliant little Indian man, and he was so good at connecting dots that all of our tutorial leaders were like, "Did you hear what he just said? He just connected 800 years of history in about 20 seconds. It's so like he was just like, I drew a map. It's so brilliant." I'm like, what? What do you? And like all the there's like 4 or 5 helpers like that follow the tutorial leaders, and they're just like jumping out of their seats, and the rest of the auditorium is like 500 people are just like, what? Is there a problem? I don't get it.
Oh, I just loved the one professor I had in theory of human action. We had a couple, like especially one student who always wanted to come with quantum physics or postmodernism in the discussion, and the professor was always like, "No, shut up. If we want to go into that, we have to throw the entire course out of the window and start completely afresh. Shut up. We're discussing this paper right now. Stop." That was really fun.
Yeah, no, reading stuff in tutorial was the best because people who actually understood the lectures could actually talk to you. And despite there being a room of like 7 or 8 people, like there's only like one or two other people who could actually talk about what was happening. So you had to.
No, in tutorial, it sadly often was the case in the tutorials I was, where people just completely got lost in speculations and everything because there wasn't really a person in the room telling them, "No, stop, wait, stay with the paper, stay with what's written there." Because I also have had fundamentals and was taught the fundamentals of literature analysis. And I was taught it in the old school way of saying you start with the text and then go further and further from the text. So you draw more and more circles around the text. But you still always have to make sure that what you're saying is actually makes sense with what's written there. And a lot of people are not taught that. And they just go wild with shit. And you're like, hold on, that doesn't make any sense with what's written here. Stop. Get back to the text.
I have found it that people who they go, well, this is before the internet was really big to do homework with, but people did go online and find summaries. And instead of reading, because it's really tough to read some of these philosophers, like John Locke is just the most boring, droll.
Well, honest to God, I find the English philosophers mostly nicer to read than the Germans, at least when you read them in German and English, respectively.
Oh, okay. Because when I read Kant, it was like in the back of my head, I feel like I should be listening to Bach. Like it's so organized and clean and bump, 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 bump. Like if there's a certain rhythm to it, and you're like, holy shit, this guy's really on the ball. And
Kant is not bad in the sense of the Germans. I just know quite a few Germans where they have a habit of, at least some philosophers, German philosophers, have a habit to try more to make the language seem impressive than explain their ideas. And so you have some philosophers which are awfully difficult to read.
I would say Hegel was up there for me. He was long-winded.
Oh, for me, it's definitely Heidegger.
Oh God, I tried reading some of Heidegger because another student in third year was, doing something and he was in tutorial, and I was like, "What is that?" It's like a big thick book. It's like, okay, it's Heidegger. I'm like, who's that? Okay, and I was like, oh.
It was a common joke for exams where it's like for some exams with like in high school it was where it's just like with the philosophy teacher, so you can take choose a book, and depending on the philosopher or the book, you won't be tested of the entire book, just some ideas, maybe some chapters. And then the question was, well, so what if we choose Heidegger? And he said, well, 3 sentences, so you have a book. Because you just such long sentences with so many commas that you just get lost in what he's even saying. It's awful. Just sign on sight, being and time. It's just like, God, stop. Where's the point?
Yeah.
Like the literal point.
Well, I do recall reading Locke, and as boring as Locke was in his, not his essay, what the heck was it? Something about a human understanding, or essay on some empirical essay he was writing.
Yeah.
As boring as it was, it all built upon itself. So like chapter 1 was like the base, and then it was like a pyramid. You just kept going up and up. And yeah, I fell asleep like 3 or 4 times reading it, but it was such like you understood where he was going, and it was just kept going and going and going. And then to go from that to a complete bonkers fellow called Bishop Berkeley is like, this is a guy who thinks that, God perceived the world and something only comes into existence if you perceive it, so it doesn't exist if you don't. You're just like, whoa, what are you talking about? And he has a very well articulated argument, but then you stop and like, yeah, you're sounding brilliant, but you're still
just the fundamental axioms.
Yeah, like you're just making crap up that can't be either way. And he has this big long book on it, and you're just like, oh my God, this. And there's actually people like some tutorial leaders knew professors who actually thought that's how the world worked. And you're like, really? Esse est percepi, just the whole world is perceived, and when the last person dies, nothing's perceived, and all of existence just blinks out because no one can perceive it. Like, really? What are you talking about?
But this just reminds me, we in some classes we read like different papers by different philosophers that will build up on each other. So sometimes you would read an incredibly boring paper, but then you need the next paper, and you're like, oh, these arguments were insanely important. Now it's actually really interesting now that the other person brings counter arguments or supporting arguments, and so it's sometimes you have to get to the boring bits to get the whole picture, which is in the end then very interesting.
It's tough to get into these interpretations. Sometimes it's easier to read them because Aristotle is gigantic. To go through any of his metaphysics takes months, and to read someone's summary from a guy who studied it for decades, it'll save some time. You'll miss some details, you'll miss some nuances, but it's tough. Going through Aristotle is tough, and I can only imagine that for translations from German to English aren't, or really any language to English is just not you're gonna miss things. And
well, there's also translation from English to other languages. You're gonna miss things, which is why a lot of philosophy in at least to the University of Bern that I went to was in English, because a lot of the fundamentals were in English for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially modern philosophy is a lot in English and is more based in the English philosophy than the continental way of doing philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also interesting. So I could write almost all my papers in English.
Wow.
I think I never wrote a German philosophy paper.
Wow. Well, it's obviously different in North America. Everything's done in English, so.
I mean, yeah, I assumed as much.
Yeah. No, that's impressive because we get all the translated versions, and we hope for the best that that's the meaning. But I've seen Aristotle where key words that he used aren't in the translation, like catharsis in the Poetics, and you're like, it's only mentioned once, but that's a really big thing that Aristotle brought into play. So people skip over that sometimes, like, it's not a big deal. It's like, yeah, it's a big deal. But no, reading is tough for those old guys that you have to actually understand where he's coming from, because if you could read the metaphysics of Aristotle, the rest of his stuff is easy. The rest of his stuff is, like, even Nicomachean Ethics is translated so many times, it doesn't really matter. You could pick it up no problem.
Well, at least I don't know if it's the case, but when I was still at uni, you could take philosophy classes where you would read the old Greeks in Greek.
Oh my God!
And then check out translation while you're reading them. So you would always have the professor with you there, and you read it together and go through the Greek and then translation. So they sometimes took the language game to that extreme. I don't know. There was one class which. It was in the semester where I quit uni, so I was only there for like 2 sessions, but it was just basically a friend of me, the professor, and I in his office for the class. Because nobody else wanted to take it. We were just sitting there reading Greek with the professor.
Jeez. That's pretty cool. I mean, to actually study in different languages, different topics, that's doing...
It is a kind of... It may sound like very special to different places, but in Switzerland, since we are a country with 4 languages or more, everything is in several languages. So for us, it's kind of a normal thing that we have stuff in different languages.
Yeah, I know. I have friends who grew up in parts of Europe, and they have like standard 3 languages, or there's 3 main cultures. And
there are certain cities in Switzerland where you can go to the butcher's shop or the bakery, and you just talk in German and they talk in French, and you just understand each other. Nobody talks in the other language, and you just go like, yeah, I would like a piece of bread, and they tell you in French that costs so and so many francs, and you go like, yeah, here you go, and then leave. It's kind of a normal thing.
Cool. So any philosophies that you would like people to check out or recommend if you're like interested in, whether it's the pursuit of truth or pursuit of meaning? There's all kinds of reasons why you would read philosophers, but what are the ones that you would recommend to others that are just getting into it?
Well, just personally, I think that just two books spring to mind. Like, one of them is Also sprach Zarathustra by Nietzsche. Mostly because I just find him a fascinating book. It's almost written it's intentionally written similarly to the Bible. And he himself called it the 5th Evangelium. I don't know what the English word is for this. The 5th evangelist piece. There are 4 ones. But anyways, and me as a fan of mythological texts and that kind of language, it's very heavy in symbolism. But I just find his idea interesting, and the different you may not agree with everything, but some of his ideas are just very poignant and just fascinating, and came true later on. He was one of the philosophers that said that the 20th century would be the most brutal and bloodiest century of human history.
Hmm.
And the other one is, I think the author's name is Sogyal Rinpoche, and it's called the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, which talks a lot about the Buddhist philosophy in terms of how you live your everyday life, and also in terms of how you deal with death and dying. So it's a very fascinating book where he describes a lot of eyewitness accounts. You can take it with as much grain of salt as you want, and it's not written with the intention of convincing you that Buddhism is right or anything. It's just more of a presentation for Westerners what actually are some of the belief structures concerning living and dying in Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism especially.
I do recall.
That one.
I do recall reading many translated version of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which
I've read that as well.
which is different. Yeah, it's almost like a near-death experience journey story.
Yeah, it is it's kind of a mythological text explaining what happens after
Right.
death. But the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, I think that's what it's called, is really a Buddhist master trying to explain the philosophy and how they deal with living and death.
Right. Well, for me, if people want to get into practical things in philosophy or philosophy that you could always fall back on, I've always seen Stoicism as the best to pick up for the average layman, because you're not stressing yourself out over metaphysics. You're not contemplating ethics too much. Yeah, there is ethics in it, but it's not like, what is the ultimate good? What does it mean to be good? It's more like, this is what it means to be good in a society with people.
It is what it means to fulfill your role in society, to
Yeah.
find your spot and do it well.
And we need a lot of control, being young men or older men or middle-aged men or whatever men we are at any stage. And there's several books you can read. The one that I recommend first is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's probably the easiest to read. There's Epictetus. He's not as easy. And the big one to me, which I prefer, is by Seneca, called Letters to Lucilius, which is this giant tome of letters mostly to Lucilius from Seneca. Lucilius is a governor, I think, in some part of ancient Rome, and he's retired, and he's writing these letters to and from Seneca, and Seneca's like telling him all. It's basically going from the Stoics to like the Epicureans. There's this big relationship between the Stoics and the Epicureans, and how to live your life in any regard for a healthy, proper existence, regardless of how painful it is, how much you dislike it, how much effort you have to put in, how much responsibility you've got. It makes you stronger as an individual, I would say, which does involve a little bit of ethics, a little bit of this and that. So it's not heavy reading. There's a lot of it, as all philosophers tend to ramble. So,
yeah,
but it's very practical, which I think is what we need a lot these days. Outside of reading for the love of reading, I read all kinds of books. So,
I also read very different books.
Yeah. So, but philosophy in general, you gotta take a lot of these guys with a grain of salt, because they're in their own worlds and they're saying amazing things. Hume is on the ball most of the time. But you can't just like absorb everything Hume and think you know everything Hume.
Yeah. But in general, you just have to take you can read the philosopher and understand his ideas while completely disagreeing with them. And also, sometimes you just realize when you're reading something that sometimes your fundamental beliefs or fundamental arguments are different to that philosopher.
Yeah.
Like how Hobbes and Hume and all have a different idea of human nature and stuff like that. And so depending on what your idea of human nature is, all the different arguments are going to be different to you. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to hopefully get our next panelist on. It's been half an hour. Thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate popping in. Bears,
thank you for having me.
Are you there, sir?
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, thank you, Crazy. Philosopher. Always a pleasure to have you on board.
Yeah, it was a pleasure for me too.
And we'd be happy to talk to you about media and gaming and life in general later, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay.
See ya.
Have a great
good
night. Okay. We're going to change course from philosophy to gaming. And Bears, what's happening today with you?
Oh, not much. Just, chilling, running a couple errands, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well,
so, yeah.
I'm going to get your screen capture going. I have to set it up again because you're a little special. And,
right.
The reason is because there's a certain way to do it on Watch Together. And it's a little difficult here. There we go. All right. Got to rebuild my wonderful world of screens. There it is. Okay, we got chat back. Let me do window capture.
Good to go.
I can hear it. I just got to maximize the screen here. All right.
And how's the audio compared to the game audio compared to us? Because I can turn that down if necessary.
I think it's okay.
All right. All right, not going to be doing anything too complex, just, standard.
Yeah, I'm still getting set up with the pop-up. Okay, I see it. There we go. Okay. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. And what game are we playing today, sir?
This is the first Injustice Gods Among Us.
Sorry.
Yeah, just to have something to look at while we discuss.
You said Gods Among Us?
Yeah.
All right, so what's the topic of conversation?
Well, pretty much the character you're seeing on the screen right now. But for the longest time, it's been my contention with Superman that people don't either they don't understand him and then they write him, or they just willfully are trying to deconstruct this character just to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, and of course, most of the media that we've seen recently, you're just deconstructing to deconstruct, not to deconstruct to find deeper meaning in this character and then rebuild them better than they were.
I see.
For example, this very video game is just, what if Superman was bad? Because that's just, that's never been done before. Nobody's ever thought of anything like that.
Well,
and that's the entirety of, they don't have a logical progression of how, Superman would become this.
And how the world would react and how it would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read any of the, I'm trying to remember the exact comics that he is in fact evil. I'm sure there's plenty, but it's never been as articulated or shown on the screen as it has with these games, because it's so okay, this is a beat 'em up Street Fighter style game, but there's a whole story behind it. Why Diana is the way she is, and Green Lantern, and all these other characters.
That never got an explanation, by the way.
They're just along for the ride. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Hey, Lobo's a back man. All right. But yeah, Superman in this just goes from my wife died, and he kills the Joker, which is the Joker deserves to die 1,000-fold over already. But the setup for it makes no sense. Zero. Because, okay, so how did Superman with all of his super senses doesn't notice that his wife is right there. Like, Superman, with all of his knowledge, all of his, intelligence, his reaction speed, and everything, doesn't notice that his wife is the one. And he's fought creatures that have, like, mind manipulation abilities way more than the Joker. Like, first thing that comes to mind is Mix's Spitlick, right? He's a fifth-dimensional imp with literal reality warping powers. Like, he absolutely can fuck up Superman's mind, and has in the past. But you're telling me that some Joker gas managed to fuck Superman up to the point where he kills his own wife? What? No. This is ridiculous. Like, and then, like, Superman just goes, like, he doesn't just stop with the Joker. He goes off and, like, okay, Cat, go away. Jesus Christ. Superman just goes off the deep end. Like, it is legitimately the Batman thing of, like, it's Batman, if he kills, he just keeps going. He can't stop. Like, which makes no sense. Because you absolutely can. And someone like the Joker, who, like, if we give the Joker the premise of this game, that sure, he killed 1 million people, including Superman's wife and unborn child. Right? Like, he deserves to die. You don't need to go all off with every single supervillain and superhero that disagrees with you. Like, this is not Superman.
Yeah, let's
this is somebody. This is General Zod.
Yeah, like, let's throw a tantrum, because this is even in the Batman v Superman, at least the extended version of that, where it's like, okay, he lost Lois, therefore he has to go burn the world because he's angry or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough explanation to say, she was my world. It's like, okay, you loved her, we get it. You want to just damn humanity and, like, turn everyone into a desert? Like, what do you... Why? Like, there has to be some build-up for that.
And siding with... And in that movie, if I remember correctly, it's the fact that not only did he do that, but he's also siding with Darkseid for some reason. Like, this is not Superman at all. Like, do you want to know how I know? Because there was a very excellent comic book called What's So Funny with Truth, Justice, and the American Way, in which Superman is essentially a direct, like, call out to all these people that think superheroes have to be these uber violent, murderous pieces of shit. Where Superman battles this quartet called the Elite, who do exactly that. Like, they go along, they kill whoever they fucking feel like, up to and including world leaders of 2 warring nations, Bialya and Pokolistan. Like, the problem is, the conflict between Bialya and Pokolistan, in spite of their protestations, was not over. Because guess what happens? Like, the Bialyans blame the Pokolistani blame the Bialyans. And the war continues with new leaders. That's what Superman was trying to teach them, but they refused to acknowledge this. And then they tried to kill him. But Superman, being Superman, like, solved this problem in I wouldn't say a non-violent way, but a non-murderous way.
Right.
And then the follow-up to that was Manchester Black, the leader of the Elite, who thought he lost his powers, like, finds out that they were not actually, cut out of him like Superman claimed, but instead just temporarily disabled. So he breaks out of prison, fucks with Superman's mind, makes him think that he killed Lois, and, like, Superman at the very end, in spite of everything, in spite of how angry he was, decides, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to disable your powers again, this time permanently, and you are going to face justice. Like, and that was the end of their conflict.
Right.
Like, and then, of course, Manchester Black, defeated, like, takes off the illusion, reveals that Lois is fine, and then ends up killing himself because, like, he has nothing else to live for, because his ultimate goal was a failure. that is Superman. Like, this on screen, this whole game and everything around it, especially the second one, that's not Superman. At all.
Yeah, it feels like it's a Elseworld comic in a video game where, okay, what if Superman actually did all these silly things? You'd be like, okay, that's dumb, first off. But would everything else be dumb after as a result? And that's the problem I have with a simple game like this. Like, it's not there to make you go, okay, this could happen. It's like, oh, this is just a what if. Have fun. Don't think about it. It's not supposed to be some complex narrative. Whereas you would have people like Lex Luthor and Batman, these very smart fellows, thinking and being very practical in their methods, very, very exact. So I don't think we just see the whole world just get stupid. I think Superman would be deluded and angry and furious that no one can understand what I go. I am an alien on an alien planet, and everything I care for is gone, and da 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 da. You're like,
except that's the thing. Superman cares about the entirety of humanity.
Yeah, he was
and
raised.
In this comic book, his own parents are still alive. Like, he's got friends, he's got loved ones. Like, in the second game, he finds Supergirl. So, hey, there's more family.
Yeah. Which would be the perfect example of someone to relate to, because one of the issues... I don't remember all the comics because it's been a while since I read them. The issue was humans are too weak and soft, and if you fall in love with them, they're going to break your heart. They don't live as long as you do. And he's trying to impart this, I think, to his daughter or some cousin of his who's also Kryptonian. I can't remember which one it was. And it's this whole thing, be careful, because you're going to hurt yourself if you get involved with humans or people who are weaker than you. Because because as soon as people know you, they're going to come after your weaknesses, which usually involve your family or your personal relations. So yeah,
which is like one of my biggest issues with like superheroes in general is like, okay, why are you getting with a regular nigga or some regular hoe? Like, why? Like, the bad guys are gonna come after you. You need to be around like super powered individuals,
right? Which is why Batman makes a lot of sense most of the time, because he's like, I have this nightlife persona I want to keep up so people leave me alone, and I'm the playboy, but I got work to do. And I don't have time for a relationship. I don't have time to take care of some woman. And even at best, with Wonder Woman, he's like, I don't even want to get involved with her. She's crazy. She's like part of some demigod pantheon who could like break walls with her super breath or whatever she's got. And Batman's just a guy, but he has his own priorities. So. He would not want the responsibility of hanging out with Diana to, I don't know, whatever Diana wants to do. So it seems counterintuitive for these people to even have relationships unless they're part of the real world. Let's say the Flash. He could live a normal life if he wanted. It makes sense. But the Flash can do anything anyway, so it's like, all right.
Yeah.
He's the OP character out of all of them, I think. That breaks the
Barry,
rule.
stop going back in time, Barry. Please.
Please stop changing reality when your mom dies.
But yeah, the thing with Injustice is that it's not the first. It won't be the last. Like, complete. I think the biggest one, and one of the oldest that I can think of, is Dark Knight Returns.
Okay.
Like, that is just a complete fundamental misunderstanding of who Superman is from an excellent writer, which is like, just goes to prove you're not perfect.
In Dark Knight, he's pretty much the Boy Scout of the federal government.
I wouldn't even say that. He's a lapdog.
Yeah. And Batman sufficiently beats him to the point of just proving a point. He doesn't want to kill him either.
Which is, in and of itself, kind of a ridiculous...
It's overblown, but it's almost as if Superman respects Batman to the point where it's like, you know what? I'm not going to go full tilt on my friend here. Or else I'd melt him in seconds, right? So
yeah, like, of the couple of times where Superman was actually, like, fighting, like, he essentially ripped off Batman's helmet and caved the chest of his breastplate in, like, and this is a Superman that hasn't had sunlight for a couple days and who took a nuke that weakened him and who was weak in general compared to, the standard adaptations of Superman.
Fully charged.
Like, and this is one of those, like, interesting things, like one of the most, like the best adaptations of Superman is, of course, like, Red Son. Which is interesting because even in that, Superman is essentially a commie dictator who kills people, killed fucking Stalin, and, like, installed fucking, like, at a certain point, like, killed Stalin because he was being too much of a fascist, right? Like, fucking with people's minds using technology, using super tech, but he ends up doing the exact same fucking thing.
yeah, the story is definitely an
But even then, it's like, even then, it's like, this is a good representation of, like, Superman in this situation.
right, yeah, because his morals and his ethics came from his family. And because he was raised in Soviet Russia, he starts off like, okay, yeah, we gotta protect the workers' paradise, we gotta keep the nation up together, and he realizes that Stalin's not doing a good job. And once he gets to the brain rewriting and the chips, or whatever those things are, it's just like, whoa, buddy, what are you doing? So there are some...
Just, literally just the end result of... It's essentially just the end result of his, environment. Like, if Superman was a commie, this would be what he would... And it's like I said, it's still a better version than this game. But because, like, again, the motivations are so much fucking better.
They make a lot more sense. Yeah. And I think Lois Lane is marrying or about to marry Lex. And Lex is this, again, still a super genius, evil bastard, but wanting to be president. Like, it's still there. The stories are all this. Like, there's not that much of a great change. Batman is strangely in the USSR. So is Diana. And Diana made a promise to Superman, I think, to do whatever. So she's always going to protect him as a friend thing. She gets hit by some kind of radiation, I think, and some bomb that Batman makes.
I think, if I remember correctly, it was Lex Luthor invented all that shit.
Yeah.
And then gave it to Batman, who was an insurgent.
Yeah,
but
Diana sacrifices herself, essentially, to save whatever's going on.
I fucking missed.
Ooh, nice.
Fuck you, Hal. So you get for touching 14-year-olds, you piece of shit. My actual fucking canon, by the way.
Oh. Well, Superman has been misunderstood throughout the past 20 years, I'd say, for movies. And video games, yeah, I'd say so too.
Like, and it's essentially all just down to, like, we want to destroy this character. Not for any grand purpose, like I said in the beginning, but just to destroy him, because the people that write shit like this are incredibly cynical. Like, they can't, like, they don't notice the people that have, like, Superman-like heroism, like first responders, the people that run into burning buildings, the people that run into active shooter situations at risk of their own life with no thought of, saving themselves. Like, those are the kind of motherfuckers that would be like Superman. They exist. They are here. But, no, it's just destroying heroism for the sake of destroying heroism.
They do have to recreate his background, though. Like with Red Sun, that's how you do it. You have to rewrite where he gets his morals and ethics. That's fun. Once we understand that, then you can do whatever you want because it's made up anyway. Whenever I see someone not addressing Jonathan Kent or Ma Kent or Lois Lane properly, or even his childhood, like with not Barry Allen, Lana Lang. Who else was he growing up with?
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of it.
Yeah, he had a few friends growing up. Like once you don't address that, then you're just making stuff up. You don't know what you're talking about in regards to Superman's upbringing, his morals and ethics. And once you do that, once you twist that, or you warp that, or you go back in time, or play around with those concepts, then you say, okay, now we have a character who's different. Because as we know, Superman's the guy who will always stand up for the little guy. Always. Doesn't matter if it's a cat in a tree or it's nuclear war about to happen, he's going to stand in the way.
It's like the guy that will take time out of his busy day to console someone who's suicidal multiple times in the comic books, by the way.
Yeah. He'll make time for that one person on a roof and just chill out with them. He'll be like, hey, I could be, in Uganda saving people from a flood or whatever. I'm here with you. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So those stories are what we like about Superman, and to miss that aspect of sacrifice and heroism is kind of the point. I mean, that's why we have them.
This planet will be mine.
Oh, Zod! Look, check it out. Movie Zod. So you think we're ever going to get a better Superman film now that we have Henry Cavill coming back to play?
As much I love Henry, like he's perfect for Superman. He loves the, like he knows the fiction, he loves it, but there's only so much he can do with, writers like that. Like the same type of people that write shit like, Injustice, Gods Amogus, right?
Well, if there are different writers, which I don't even know what the next project is for him, there is at least the possibility. And the reasons why he left The Witcher, I'm sure there's many reasons, but he always did want to replay his role. So I at least expect some good things from Henry. If he's just as involved as he was with Witcher, because he did his best as he could with Witcher, and they changed some lines, helped him express himself better. He knew the books. Like, that was the greatest thing about Henry. He actually read the books. He knew the lore better than the writers did, sadly.
Which is, like, you shouldn't be allowed to write something like this with a deep lore and you know nothing about the fucking character.
Well, if the actors are teaching the writers what to do, you have a problem already. It doesn't matter whether it's writing or stage production or wardrobe. It's like, if the guy knows better than you do, it's like, okay, what are you even doing at your job there? So I'm glad he's coming back. I think there's some hope, and I'm sure Zach is nowhere to be seen.
Thank fucking Christ.
Yeah, maybe he could direct, but not write.
No, I don't want him anywhere ever near nothing. No, go away.
Okay.
Like, nothing you did, nothing you said about Superman. Like, this is the kind of motherfucker. He actually said, like, if he had Superman's powers, he'd be killing people every day. Like, oh, you're a crazy person then.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Jesus. All right, here's the legacy for the $4.99. Marvel is now inappropriately light-hearted, and DC is now edgy, nihilistic, and cynical.
Which is weird because that's like the complete opposite of how it stood out originally.
It depends. Maybe if we look at Doomsday Squad, I think it was. That is a DC property on, is it Netflix?
Oh, the Doom Patrol?
Doom Patrol, thank you, sir. Yeah, that is pretty well received in its 4th season, I think. And the latest Suicide Squad film was, I don't think it was nihilistic. I think it was pretty well received. It was fun to watch and great show to have some comedy and lighthearted stuff in there. So I don't know what DC's doing right now to make it edgy. Maybe the latest Batman video game might have been edgy. Possibly.
Oh, yeah, like Batman copping to the like I'm just a rich guy that beats up the poor shtick.
No.
Which is again is like a fundamental misunderstanding of Batman, which I didn't think was possible, but you know. Oh man. Alright. The main man's whooping my ass. Which is logical.
That's one of his main foes, I think.
Yeah, like Lobo's like an everybody villain.
Oh.
Like this motherfucker's like actually fucking immortal. Like the kind of like he fucking. If I remember correctly, he as like a high school project, he either like blew up his planet or miniaturized it to the point where he could eat it, and then he did.
Okay. Isn't he
Like,
essentially
mind you, he didn't lose any of the mass, so he just ate a golf ball sized ball with the mass of a fucking planet. Like, Jesus Christ, man. But yeah, it was like I don't understand the cynicism of like people that can't enjoy something like Superman. For what it is, they have to come in and destroy it. They have to destroy the mythos behind this character.
Yeah.
This old, well-beloved character.
I think the closest thing we got recently, as a few years back, was The Brave and the Bold. I think.
It was a pretty okay series.
Yeah, it went back to the 50s, I think, and tried to have that kitschy, tacky, fun comic book feel.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fun watch. It was for kids. Some of it's tongue in cheek, but it's pretty fun. It's a good show. All right, well, we're almost done here, sir. Thank you for your talk on the wonderful world of Superman, at least the video game world of Superman. I'm sure.
Yeah.
We'll find out more from Hollywood next few years. What the devil they're going to do with his legacy?
Destroy it even more. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, it's possible. You never know. It could be a horrible experience for everyone involved.
Wait, well, you know, if I meet somebody on the street and he kicks me in the nuts, and then I meet him on the street the next day and he kicks me in the nuts, and then I meet him on the street the day after that, I'm gonna go ahead and assume what he's gonna do.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your stream there, sir, and we'll talk to you soon. Have yourself a great evening.
All right, later.
Okay. Eric, you there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming right on time. Let me get your video loaded.
All right. Is there a link?
Yes, there is.
For the watch together?
It should be if you scroll up, but I'll give it to you anyway. Don't worry. There you go. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you.
So what are we watching?
Give me a sec. This the video I believe is a gentleman who's been doing actually like the historical accuracy in Red Dead. So he would look at Red Dead and look at the actual historical events. But the video that we're watching today from that guy is how to craft the perfect prequel. Just give me a second. I'm trying to get into this watch together.
Sure, no problem. So it's not about the prequels from Star Wars. It's about prequels in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first question would be, are prequels... I don't know if you've answered this before, but I feel like I should ask it again. Just, are prequels necessary when can they be? Because I'm sure any story can be necessary, but it just seems like we've been seeing an increase in video games,
Right.
books, movies, and whatnot.
Yeah. It depends on where the audience wants the content to go, because a writer who has a popular series, let's say Harry Potter, for example, can go, okay, I can just stop there. I've made my money, but creatively you can go anywhere. And she did that outside. I don't know if she made prequels, but she wrote side stories. And that was not as popular, but it's within the same universe. So people are like, oh, I like that. I like that world of magic, but it didn't quite resonate with everyone. I think it was the World of Beasts or whatever that she called it.
So the fantastical world beast, I think.
Yeah, so prequels are just the same idea, but with a setup, because it's the thing you already know, but everyone's younger, or it's versions of another character, or a family member, like a father who's younger or whatever. So that could appeal to the audience. So it really depends on the audience, and what do you do with your creative IP? How do you milk it? How do you get good stories out of there? It doesn't really matter what the setup is, because a good writer can work with anything. And the problem is we're not getting those good stories out of prequels, unfortunately.
Well, I think this is why this video kind of spoke to me. It's because, general audiences look at prequels and they go, oh, shit. But the two examples that they will always go to is Better Call Saul and Red Dead Redemption. As in order to craft the perfect prequel, as he says.
If it works, it's not a bad idea. So let's get on with the video. I doubt we'll get through all of it. You only have half an hour, so maybe a few minutes, 10 minutes.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to finish the whole thing, but...
Yeah.
If you want this guy to produce again, why not just tell him? You're the only thing that stands between him and an axe in the head.
I don't believe fear to be an effective motivator.
This scene in Breaking Bad is able to say a lot without really saying too much at all. Here are two characters, Gus Fring and Mike Ehrmantraut, who by this point we really haven't seen all that much of. And yet, by the end of the scene, in addition to advancing the plot, we understand them both a little bit better. Mike isn't advocating for killing anyone. Gus is the one preventing the axe to the head, not threatening it. But he knows that talking to Walt is much more likely to be effective than the mind games that Gus is playing. Mike is a no-nonsense kind of guy, and this scene reiterates that. Meanwhile, Gus has his own plans, and threatening someone's life, or rather, threatening to stop protecting them, is not a part of that plan. No, he's much more thorough, calm, and manipulative, and this scene shows that. At the end of the day, this is a fairly average scene in a relatively unimportant episode, as far as Breaking Bad goes at least, but it's what came almost 10 years later that makes it more important.
You have a gun to his father's head. That doesn't sit with me. You want to keep Varga for the long run? I don't think fear is a great motivator.
In this scene from Better Call Saul, set almost 5 years prior to the one from Breaking Bad, the roles are reversed, but the characters remain consistent. Mike is still a no-nonsense kind of guy, and threatening a man's innocent father sounds like messy nonsense to me. Meanwhile, Gus remains the thorough, calm, and manipulative man we see 5 years later. That thorough manipulation just happens to involve threatening an innocent man. More than this though, this scene from Better Call Saul has a direct impact on the one from Breaking Bad, particularly if you watch them chronologically. This line,
I don't believe fear to be an effective motivator,
isn't just Gus imparting his philosophy onto Mike. It's a direct callback to something Mike said to him 5 years earlier. Perhaps by using Mike's own words against him, this is Gus's way of saying, I know what I'm doing. A reminder that these two men have known each other and worked together for long enough now that little else need be said.
You see, that could be a bad thing, because if you purposely know that, the philosophy switched. It's like, did he learn the lesson, or is he just repeating what the guy said? Because now you have to think that way, because you're going backwards.
Hey, this is a weird thing where it's like it recontextualizes, Breaking Bad, and I'm like, this scene in general is just he wants Walt back into the meth game or whatever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. You never get the sense that these other characters or these other events happened in Better Call Saul, and part of that is just because they didn't know they were going to make a prequel.
I gotcha.
Or perhaps Gus is subtly trying to call Mike out on his hypocrisy. The fact that he was so vehemently opposed to violence against Nacho's dad 5 years ago, but doesn't see a problem with it now. After all, Mike's character has evolved a bit in that time. He cares about people less, with the exception of his family, and he's less likely to question Gus's decisions. Perhaps Gus is calling him out on that. Either way, this scene is significantly improved simply with the added context of Better Call Saul. It goes from an average scene with a somewhat interesting interaction, to a memorable scene demonstrating character relationships and growth. And it's elements like that make Better Call Saul a masterclass in the crafting of a prequel. It doesn't feel like a cash grab or a useless spin-off. It feels like an extension of the original story, context for something already perfect.
Okay, that's a bit high praise.
I got a plan, John.
You always got a plan, Dutch.
This is a good one. We can't always fight nature, John. We can't fight change. Can't fight gravity. We can't fight nothing. My whole life, all I ever did was fight.
Dutch van der Linde appears in 4 of the 57 missions in Red Dead Redemption, 3 if we're just counting speaking appearances, and he has a grand total of around 35 lines of dialogue across the game's many thousands. Yet his presence looms over the entire story, or rather his absence in the dozens of missions that come before, every rare mention of him increasing his mysticality. And in the few missions that follow his appearance, his words permeate almost every scene. His warning to John that the government would not stop until they are all dead, looming over your head as you grow more comfortable being around your ranch again with your family. Dutch's words here,
We can't always fight nature.
felt poetic within the context of Red Dead Redemption back in 2010, essentially an admission that he is unable to fight his own nature, and a warning that John needn't put in the effort to fight his own. 8 years later, though, we got even more context to Dutch's words.
I got a plan. This is a good one. My whole life, I tried to fight change. You can't fight nature, Captain. You can't fight change. You can't fight gravity.
In this scene from Red Dead Redemption 2, set about 12 years prior to the one from the first game, Dutch, now one of the main characters with over 1,000 lines of dialogue in the main story alone, is being his usual self, chatting away to buy him and Arthur some time as they back away to the edge of the cliff. What's especially fascinating about this scene though, if you play the games in release order, is how identical the dialogue is to the first game.
I got a plan, John. This is a good one. We can't fight nature. We can't fight change. Fight change. You can't fight.
So I'm just curious what your thoughts are so far, just in the way that he's trying to illustrate this point.
Yeah, no, it's the same line, essentially, from the same character, whereas in the previous scene is a bit more complicated with Better Call Saul, implying that Gus remembers a conversation they had 5 years ago, and that either he's learned from it, or he's implying something else because he's manipulative, and because Gus is a violent guy. Of course he's a violent guy. He does all kinds of violent stuff. And he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to, but he knows what he's doing. And he doesn't need to listen to Mike, as smart as Mike is, to do what he's trying to do. In this case, there's the same character saying the same lines, and and they're giving it another scene. It's like, this worked in the first game, let's do more of it. That's what I see here. It's the same idea. They're just giving it a different context.
Right.
So the lesson is the same in this case because it's still Dutch. And
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the thing where like Dutch can't change who he is. Like that's the point, I think. And then I think it just works better for Red Dead, whereas in Better Call Saul, I don't think it's that consistent.
It's much more clear in Red Dead because Dutch is saying exactly the same lines, and the difference is this is like a Butch Dance and Cassidy scenario where they jump off the frickin' cliff together.
Right.
And it gives meaning to that to what we can't fight gravity. So he was being clever back in the past, and now he's like, this is all I got. That's all I remember. I'm an old guy now. I'm dying, and I gotta share what I got. So it's good because it's consistent. It's also good because it gives you more of what the character always is. That's what I like in stories, consistency with characters. Would they behave the same or in the same way the character should behave in a different scenario? And he just happens to be saying the same things. So it's a great nod to people who played the first game and go, I remember this scene. It sounds exactly like, maybe you don't remember the scene because there's so much content in both these games. And then you go to this, you're like, wait a second, that's the same line of dialogue. I remember that. It's almost delivered the same way too. So
with the different protagonists, it's like, oh, that's the connection to the past and the future.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, well, not really, but it's kind of like a line said by Garrus Vakarian, like, just like old times, or Joker on the just like old times. Like, yeah, we're back in the saddle, doing this all over again.
Right.
So stuff like that. If you understand the sentiment behind what they're saying, it's great. It's a little bit more nuanced in Better Call Saul because we're talking about two manipulative guys doing something illegal, arguing with each other to figure out the best course of action, and one of them says the exact opposite or says the same thing to the other person in different timelines or time frames. So that is where you go speculation because you know what's happening. But in this case, it's clear. So I prefer it obviously in Red Dead because it's clearer, it's simpler, and there's more to it. And you can understand what that nuance is. Whereas with Better Call Saul, it's like, what does he mean by that exactly? He's still manipulative.
Because this is like already a shady character. Like there's not much. Well, it's hard to get into, right? Because he's supposed to be a mysterious figure. Especially when he kills his own man. It's like, why did he do that? I don't know.
Yeah, Gus is a very interesting villain, and he's not revealed to the audience in all the capacities you would think a villain would be. So this is all good writing. Can you have characters who are unclear? Sure. That's, I think, one of the problems with Gus. He's just not as clear as we'd like him, but he's sufficient for the plot, so it's okay. So you can make him as weird and goofy. Maybe he's a homosexual. We don't know. Like there's stuff like,
God, no.
Yeah, there's stuff like that. It's unclear, right? So that's fine. It doesn't break the story. It doesn't make his character become something else. It just gives him that mystique that makes you wonder what he's going to do next. And that's why Gus is so good because he does these elaborate plans, and he's always the next step ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
Whereas with Red Dead, it's just a bunch of guys trying to get by, realizing that their current way of life is no longer working, and the world catches up to them. But I prefer,
and that's why he becomes the madman that he is in the first game.
And that's why I prefer the Red Dead example, because it's more easy to understand, and even then you could even make him more nuanced, more complex. You could add more backstory if you really want to, and we do get that in the second game anyway. So
yeah.
So yeah, two great examples, but it when you have a good writer, it doesn't matter if you're doing a flashback or a prequel or a sequel, dream sequence, they know what they're doing. So yeah, good stuff.
Gravity. My whole life, all I ever did was fight change.
Perhaps this repetition is simply indicative of Dutch's character. He probably thought of this speech some time ago. He might have even read it in a book. And it's what he thinks about when he's backed up against the edge of a cliff. More than that, though, I think when playing the games chronologically, in Dutch's final moments, he's thinking about Arthur. He's thinking about his friend who he lost, due in large part to his own actions, 12 years earlier. He's thinking about the time when they were backed up against the wall, and how even after everything they'd been through, in that moment, they still had each other's backs. only there's no water to save him this time. Unlike what Better Call Saul does to Breaking Bad, this doesn't take an average scene and make it important. The scene from the original game is already one of its most important, best written, and best performed scenes. No, Red Dead Redemption 2 takes that incredible scene and elevates it. It gives context to a scene that didn't really need it at the time, but in retrospect feels essential.
No, it doesn't.
Instead of feeling like a cash grab sequel to a successful video game, Red Dead Redemption 2 feels like a necessary extension of the original.
It doesn't make it essential, it just makes it make sense in a different light. That's fine. You know.
You could probably say it's icing on the cake, if anything.
Well, yeah, that's what a sequel is, whether it's a prequel or happens in the future of the same timeline. It's more of what you like in a different context. So that's fine.
Well, and it's like cash grab. That's beside the point. Like, whether it is or isn't, is it well written?
I don't think you could argue into that in any regard you have a sequel, but in this case, does it make sense for the character? If it makes sense for the character, it's totally fine. Is it plot related? Not necessarily, but it happens along the main storyline, so it's fine. You know, there's lots of things you could say, like, are you wasting my time? Do we need more context? Do you care? Is this central to the character's motivation? What's he trying to do here? And the story has been consistent with the main theme of the past catching up with you and your life changing, you're unable to change and all that good stuff. So it works. It's clear. It's not that complicated. It's good.
Story. Context for something already perfect. These are two of the best prequels ever made. What makes the quality of these products even more impressive is simply the nature of prequels. They are at an automatic narrative disadvantage before they've even begun.
Why?
Fans of the original products, who oftentimes are the primary consumers and target audience of the prequels, already know where the story is going to end.
That doesn't make them inferior. That just means the ending is going to be a certain way. No, that's nothing to do with the quality of the writing. Not at all. That's just like saying if you read a book and yeah, imagine you read a book from chapter 1 to chapter 20 and someone writes a prequel, so it's basically just either a time skip into the past or it could have been -20 to -1 and then you get chapter 0. So it could have just been that order of sequence. That doesn't make the second book the person's writing any less or more. It just means what's going to happen. And there's plenty of stories where you learn the first chapter, what's going to happen to these guys because there's a prophecy or someone says you're going to die in 20 days or whatever the setup is. So just because you know what the end point of these characters are because you read the rest of the story, yes, some of the suspense is not going to be there because you know that some of them aren't going to die, but that doesn't make the story any less suspenseful or wouldn't have its own twists and turns or drama or comedy or whatever the writer
But do you think that depends though? Like, I like to use Star Wars for an example.
Sure.
Like, seeing the downfall of Anakin Skywalker, that could be really interesting. Like, that's why I went to those theaters when I was a kid, because I want to see him become the evil dictator that he is. So that's interesting.
Right.
But it's like, you look at Better Call Saul, and it's like, do I really need to see how this down to his luck lawyer man becomes a shyster lawyer?
If the characters are compelling enough, then yes. The problem with the prequels with Star Wars is it didn't really make sense, and the only really the only really interesting things that happened in the prequels were in Episode 3, where Anakin was like, why are you asking me to do the thing that the Jedi doesn't believe in? Like, this is wrong. Like, that was a good argument. It's like, yeah, you're right. That's a good reason not to obey the masters because they told you to do something. And we don't kill. We take.
Let me murder all the kids now.
and then just stuff doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so it's like you had some moments there, not the first two films. The third one, yes, but how he went from point C to Zed makes zero, like there's no connection. You know, his eyes start glowing. He kills some kids. He's pissed off at Obi-Wan for no reason. He hates him for whatever reason. I want all the power. I don't know. I'll live and I'll be the strongest. I was like, wait, what?
His allegiance was to the Republic, to democracy. Don't you get it?
Yeah, it just all comes out of nowhere, and you're just like, okay, this is written poorly. It doesn't matter if this was a prequel or a sequel or whatever. The writer didn't know what they were doing. So,
all right, yeah.
Just because you know he's gonna be Darth Vader doesn't change anything, because Darth Vader just literally becomes Darth Vader out of nowhere. There's no build up to it. He burns his skin. Now he's in a robot body. He's Darth Vader. Like, that's it. And the reasoning's asinine. He's like, I want to save Padme. Well, she's dead now. What are you going to do? Well, I'll just keep going along with this crazy person, whatever he tells me to do. It's like, what? Don't you feel remorse? Guilt? Didn't you love the Jedi and then you killed them? Like, don't you have a conscience? Like, what happened? Where'd that go?
The Force Unleashed happened.
Well, yeah, that's
canon.
That's the saving grace, is that there's this other story which just messes everything up. So yeah, it really just comes down to the writer knowing what the hell they're doing. And I know it's kind of a cheap way of saying good writers write good stories, but
I sometimes I wonder, is it interesting enough to go into? Because I recently had this was the God of War, where it's like you go to his death, his supposed death, right? And then the next game is like, oh, you're back in the beginning where everything started.
Is the second God of War game a prequel?
No, what is it? God of War Ascension.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So it's like we go back to the beginning to when he broke his oath with Ares.
Right.
And it's like, why? I'm not saying it can't be interesting, but it's just like, this is why I asked the question, like, is it really necessary to go into? For a video game, maybe it's easier because, hey, I get to control this character again, I get to do all these fun things, but like in movies or books, I imagine books it's easier because it's your imagination going wild, but film and TV, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I can't see the full picture.
Yeah, I think it's a bit unique with Better Call Saul because people like those characters in those stories. The writers know what they're doing, and it really was a standout show. Breaking Bad was. Not to say other shows in the era or the time period weren't good, but it was impactful enough for people to pay attention and say, okay, this is appealing to, the retired physics teacher or anyone in education, people who know people who smoke pot or whatever. There's the drug culture. There's people in America.
Well, I mean, wasn't there the financial crisis during 2008?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of ways it appeals to the audience. There's to me it was pretty much the dramatic scenes that you just stop and go, oh my God, that just happened. Mm-hmm. And we relate to Walter at the first season at least, where he's just the guy trying to do the thing with the drug lords, and he's getting through it. You're like, oh my God, that's crazy, and it's almost funny in a way because the stuff he pulls off is nuts. And there's all that. There's at least one of those scenes in every episode. There's always this whoa, and that's the thing that I remember the most. So, the good writers can connect the dots, whether it's 5 years in the past, 5 years in the future. It makes no difference.
All right.
Yeah, not a complicated concept. The problem becomes when you talk about continuity. You could definitely run into a problem with continuity, and that scene with Mike and the other guy, like that could that could screw stuff up a bit if you're not careful. And yeah, I could see the problem with it just because of the line is being said by someone else.
Well, there's issues of just like in Breaking Bad, there was never a sense that Saul Goodman was a cartel lawyer, whereas in his own show, it's like, oh, he's involved with the cartel. I mean, he even gets PTSD from a cartel shootout, and I'm just like, am I supposed to buy that this is the same character that disregards all of these kinds of threats?
Yeah,
I don't know.
it is a popular.
It's a good show on its own. Yeah, it's a good show on its own, but
yeah,
when you're connecting it to Breaking Bad, that's where I'm just like, I don't know if everything fits as well as everyone thinks it does.
Yeah, prequels are not some magical concept that is so difficult to pull off. In fact, I would say it's probably easier to write a prequel because you know the ending, which is one of the things we teach, or we should teach writers. It's like, write your ending first, know where you're going, know where you're starting, know where you're getting to the crossroads in the story, and the rest you could fill in. So there's nothing stopping a writer from being a good writer of a prequel. Nothing. And just because your characters just because you know one character's not going to die, doesn't mean that there's going to be no suspense if they get into a deadly situation. Like with Mike is talking to some drug lord, and he's like, either give me my money or everyone in this room dies or something like that.
Which he has done. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, he won't die, but something could happen to him. We just don't know what. And the scene,
I think that was Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, and the scene is deflated because the guy's like, look at the balls on this guy. So they turn into a tense scene into this it's still a tense scene, but it's more tongue in cheek funny. So,
but I just think it's just using Red Dead as an example. It's like you look at the character of Arthur, and it's like, well, this is a character that doesn't show up in the next game. So, like, yeah, I guess anything could happen. So I just think that's interesting where you put your focus on.
Oh God, yeah. There's so many things to focus a narrative on, and a prequel like Breaking Bad can do many things. And thankfully, they focused on the character and the plot as opposed to let's do cool shit. Let's do explosions. Let's do fight scenes. But they do have some gun shooting scenes, but it's all done properly with Mike. So.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's about it, huh?
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time there, Eric. I appreciate it. That was a good topic. I think if we had some like Dunn coming on or other writers to talk about prequels and how to write, that'd be a great thing to ask them.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe next time.
All right.
I would like to explore it more. But yeah, no, thank you for your insight as always.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Eric.
Yep. Take care.
Okay, LiteratureDevil, how you doing, buddy? What's happening?
Hello. It's been a while.
It's the time of the year where everyone's losing their 401k, and I got to buy some Christmas presents, and the mornings are so much traffic, I don't have time to come on your show and say hello.
Yeah. Well, we got fun now. We got them on now. We can do it. We can have some fun stuff going on.
Yeah, there's always good stuff to talk about. Now, I know I asked you specifically wanted to talk about anime and manga, and oh boy, what a topic. I mean, we do this every week. You do it every week, talking about this or that show. There's all kinds of news in the comic book world, of course, that you cover. So let's go over some shows that I've been watching, you've been watching, some manga maybe you've been reading. What's on your plate for anime or manga?
Well, I did quite a few. My favorite one so far, well, my favorite, but I did watch those educational anime, like Cells at Work. That one was pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
Then I was shown another one that I've been really enjoying, which was Heaven's Design Team, which is especially hilarious when you put them in the context of Dungeons and Dragons, because they actually try to make dragons and unicorns work in the real world, and we get to see why exactly they don't, and it's fantastic. My favorite one is I've been really going on about is the unicorn. And when they try to make the unicorn, they seriously try to make the unicorn work in the real world. And the fact is that the unicorn can't, they go over like things like its diet won't be able to sustain the unicorn because of the horn, because it takes a lot of calcium. And but the guy who's making the unicorn just really, really wants the unicorn to work, and he wants the unicorn to look like what he wants to look like, which is a cool, elegant horse. You know what women like? The elegant horse with the horn, beautiful, majestic, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So they came with another option. Let's just put the horn on a cow. Let's make the horse a cow. That way it can have multiple stomachs. It can support the horn. He's like, no. I mean, that gives the cool weapon. That gives the cool horn. But I wanted to have the elegance too. And like, yeah, but you can't really do that because it doesn't work that way. And he's like, you know what? Make it stupid. The one before that was hollow out the horn. Make the horn really hollow, and therefore it won't take as much calcium. Right? That'll work. And they found out that making the horn hollow looks cool, and it technically does work, but the horse, it's not a weapon anymore because he wanted to make a cool animal with a cool weapon, and it's not a weapon anymore. It just snaps like a twig whenever you hit it. So it's like make the horse dumb. The brain takes a lot of energy. Just make it really, really stupid, and they did it, and it technically works, but they still have to keep the horn hollow. And so it barely works, but the horse is like way too dumb because in this case, the unicorn is dumber than a regular horse, and regular horses are already kind of stupid. So, woe is what called and Napoleon is always right, that sort of thing. But and then they kind of just fight with each other, and then their horns snap and they die. So he's like, oh, it's not going to work. So they kind of take the horn and put it on a narwhal. But the thing is, I did like the idea of a dungeon master trying to pick this up. And saying, okay, you can have your unicorn, but it's going to be like a scientifically accurate unicorn. It's going to be stumpy and stupid, which delighted me to no end.
Kind of reminds me of a Robin Williams skit where he talks about heaven and trying to create man and woman and all the technical problems involved with how they came up with boobs and penises and whatever. Oh, geez. Okay, so that's a show I've never heard of, and God, there's so many I haven't, and I've been only watching what's on the fall network.
Oh, yeah. Heaven's Design Team is a funny premise, too, because it's basically God created the heavens and the earth, and then he started creating the creatures, but then he outsources the creation of the creatures to, like, a design team. That's why it's called Heaven's Design Team. And it's an educational anime where, like, I guess the Greek god, or no, the Roman gods, they're all named after Roman gods, they're basically just artists that God commissioned to make his animals. And then God is like the worst commissioner ever. He's like, make an animal that runs without legs. And like, what? That's it. Good luck. And the horse guy tried to make a Pegasus, like the flying horse. Oh. He's all about horses. And then they found like that one for fun, like just because it's cool. And then like, oh, it doesn't work. So they gave up on it. And then God's like, make horses fly somehow. Oh, yeah, how? I don't know. Make horses fly. You're the artist. That's great. It's like having an animal that fights without fighting. It's like, what are you doing? He's such a terrible commissioner that during the show, a demon from hell comes up and he's very polite, very professional, but he gives him like a crappy drawing that gives the team an idea of how it goes, what he wants to have happen, and he wants them to make Cerberus. And what happens is like, oh man, this drawing sucks. Like it's terrible because like a stick figure drawing and stuff. And then like it's really embarrassing for me to show this in front of all you like awesome artists. And then they're like, all the artists are crying. Like they're, oh my goodness, actual input information. Yeah, you're actually giving us something to go off of. You're so awesome. Like so, the demon is like a better commissioner than God. Oh. In that case, it's hilarious. I like it, but it's really funny. It's a nice little show. I like it a lot. They try to make a dragon work, and they try to make it work, but they kind of troll the guy who made the dragon at the same time by making the dragon like a fart balloon thing they put on the back of a turtle. So it'll work this way. It's good. It's a really fun show. It's educational because they go over like the details of how animals are made and why they work the way they do.
Right.
And how invisibility works, things like that. So it's really cool. I really enjoyed it. It's funny and the characters are fun. And on top of being educational and stuff like that, it's pretty cool. So I've been having a lot of fun with that one. So it's been pretty cool. And then also got into I'm finally managed on recommendation from the loading crew to read Redo of Healer. And oddly enough, I thought I had downloaded something else that I thought was Redo of Healer, not really Redo of Healer, but it is like a knockoff of Redo of Healer.
Oh.
It's the same thing of hero gets betrayed, redoes the life, and then spends that life getting revenge.
Right.
That sort of thing. So it was interesting. Like, it really felt like that person read Redo of Healer and then made their own version of Redo of Healer. That's kind of really what it felt like. He gets a Beast Girl and everything too. It's just kind of fun. I do like that because the first thing he does upon being reborn is punch the princess in the stomach. I was like, okay, it's just starting off. Okay.
Yeah, that is actually a manga I'm reading as well. That is a full revenge plot, and it's just as the content's pretty much as sex and violence and decapitations, and they go to hell and all kinds of stuff. So you would be surprised how many duplicates there are, at least of the isekai main genre, but the subgenres of plots like revenge, and hey, this character's a necromancer, and he's also like solo leveling warrior, and he's also a necromancer. It's like, oh no, he's so the Japanese are borrowing from the South Koreans, who are borrowing from the Chinese. It's just the constant.
And we're borrowing from the Japanese, but apparently we're doing it awful. Like our mainstream artists, when they borrow from Japan, they do it in like the worst way possible. they get like this mock anime and it sucks. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Like, okay, we'll just have them eat. Like Marvel, I know for a fact is doing that, where they kind of, anime, they always eat. There's like always a shot of them eating at some point. And when they do an anime, I talk about this all the time. When they do an anime, it's like Goku. Like, Goku eats like a pig. Like, he just guzzles down food and he chokes sometimes. And then you have like another character like I don't know, Gene from one of my favorite animes, Samurai Champloo, and he eats a little more elegantly as opposed to maybe like Mugen, who eats also like Goku. What I mean is, when the anime does it, they do it to show you character. That's like, this character eats this way. This character eats this way. This character eats like more elegantly. This character eats with utensils. This character only eats, I don't know, vegetables or something like that. How they eat, what they eat, how they eat it, what they use to eat it. Do they add sauce? What kind of drink do they have? It all is there to show you their character. Now, in Marvel, as far as I've seen, they just have them eat like at the end of the first Avengers movie. Like, isn't it quirky that these superheroes are eating like normal people? And that's kind of where it ends. Like, they don't use it to like, oh, Thor, he went to the store to the restaurant to buy like a mug of beer, and or something like that. Or Thor eats like Goku, while Tony Stark eats a little more elegantly, or something like that. Or he's maybe more lean back. No, the whole novelty of them eating is not anything except, hey, they're eating. Isn't that quirky? That's kind of how they do it in Marvel. So they kind of totally sidestep the meaning of eating, how they use it in anime usually.
Yeah, it's just a cultural thing. Like, hey, it's shawarma. Who goes out for shawarma? Yeah. I go out for shawarma. How about bibimbap? You ever had bibimbap? It's like, yeah.
Like, they think their audiences are more, they're eating. They're just like me. That's literally as far as it goes. They probably just should have had them do like McDonald's or something like that at this point. But with Redo of Healer, here's the odd thing. With Redo of Healer, it actually lost me after a while. And it's not even because like, the horrible things he's doing. The others. So where they lost me is when he like brainwashes the princess and then makes her, it's like, oh no, that's morally evil. I could see the reason why I didn't like that is because she turned into like a nice, good person who's very supportive of him, and I don't want revenge against her anymore. It kind of goes back to that idea of Roadrunner and Coyote, the Coyote and Roadrunner, where the sympathy must always remain with the Coyote because he's like the main guy you follow around, and they do that by having the Roadrunner just be kind of aloof and be never bothered, and it's kind of making fun and mocking the Coyote. He's kind of a jerk, and we're like, yeah, you get that Roadrunner. He's kind of a jerk. This one is like, okay, the story. I've read like two other stories by Redo of Healer that have the same or similar premise.
Yeah,
and thing is, at least they kept it where like the princess is evil, sure, but the princess is like irredeemably evil. Like, she has no recourse, she has no guilt or anything like that. They make her completely irredeemable and almost like not a person in terms of how comically evil the princess is. So you kind of, it's easy to root for the main character and follow him around and really hope that he does horrible things to this princess and stuff like that. With Redo of Healer, he turns into like a good supportive person. I was like, that lost me.
Yeah,
like immediately.
The one that I think you read, which had what you wanted, was, well, there's a Japanese title, I won't pronounce it, but it's called "The Hero Who Seeks Revenge Shall Exterminate with Darkness."
Yeah, I read that one.
Yeah,
that's one of the ones I read.
That is the one that has all the revenge and all the nasty stuff happening. And
that one was good.
Yeah.
That one was great. I couldn't wait to finish that one. I ate through all that stuff. So it's not the fact that the hero's doing terrible things, and that's not what got me. It's not the fact that all that stuff, the cruelty, the revenge, the psychological torture, isn't that either. It was the fact that they in Redo of Healer, they had the main topic of the revenge, which was the princess, and they turned her into a supportive character. I'm like, I don't really want to see bad things happen to them at this point. And then the guy was like a jerk, like he has no redeemable virtues or anything like that. He's not like even the Beast Girl, who's completely innocent. He did him no wrong. Is even he sees her as a toy and like property, and just kind of uses her and everything. Like, this guy's an asshole. Why do I like him again? Like, I know he went through horrible things for a long time. He remembers them all, and I can totally understand why he would be evil, but he's evil. Like, he's a bad guy. I kind of really want him to win either, and I was rooting for him. I really was, up until the princess was brainwashed, and it really, it's to me, it's fun. It's what makes it fun is the fact that the people he's going up against really deserve all this. Like, you can have a not in terms of justice, but in terms of just primal, I'm going to get you back for what you did to me. And it works the best, I think, when the subject of the revenge is like Bill from Kill Bill or something like that. Completely unrepentant, unremorseful asshole. Just barely any redeeming qualities. And they did it correctly in the one you mentioned, The Hero Shall Exterminate with Darkness. And I read another one, which I think is new, which is the hero who gets revenge while laughing a second time or something like that, which is almost like a carbon copy Redo of Healer, except it does the things that I want it to do. Like, the main bad guys remain the main bad guys. The princess remains irredeemable, and everyone's a jerk. And then he gets a Beast Girl sidekick as well, but he doesn't treat her like a toy. He treats her like an equal. He treats her like a friend, which shows me some virtue. And to the point where I almost forgot that he is kind of a vengeance-seeking weirdo. And so I ate through those pages immediately. I ran through those pages immediately. I was like, oh, Redo of Healer. This is not Redo of Healer. I need to read the actual Redo of Healer. And so I did. And I was like, okay, I was really up to it. Like, yes, this is awesome. And then he brainwashes the princess. It's like he turns into a good person. Like, this guy's kind of a jerk at this point, because she's a good, supportive, nice, kind person now. And I was like, well, isn't that it? Like, isn't it done? No, I got to make it worse. But yeah, but it's not sympathetic anymore. He lost my sympathy by turning her into a more sympathetic character.
Yeah, you're describing the expectations of a plot or a genre where it's like, this is a story of romance, and you're like, oh, there's a love triangle. Where's the romance? Like, why aren't they falling in love? Why aren't they fighting? Why are they talking about food and driving and their hobbies? Like, what happened to the genre? Why are you giving me something I don't want?
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like, and this is the problem of any expectations you have based off a title, cover art, whatever the thing that gets you into the thing, and you're like, oh, it's not what I wanted. And that is the problem with a lot of, I wouldn't say Japanese manga that gets popular, but there's plenty of these stories where it's like, oh, it's going to be about cooking, and it's a cooking isekai or whatever the premise is, but it's food that's so alien you can't understand. And it always tries to tie back to like, well, I'm Japanese and I like soy sauce and I like rice, but I can't find it here, so I'm going to use lemon juice, but they don't have lemons. And so I was like, what? See, it loses its own idea creatively from the premise, and the expectations aren't met, unfortunately. But I'm sure there's other shows or other manga you've liked, or those are the big ones you really enjoyed these days.
The ones I've read recently, the other one I've really been reading, not recently, but it's fairly new in translation. So they've been releasing the manga occasionally over the last few months, so it's been a while. Was The Great J Shall Not Be Defeated. completely in love with this series. This is like because I also love what I would call its like shonen version of that one, which is the Devil's a Part-Timer, which is like an evil demon goes to our world after being defeated. So, and then they have to live in the real world, get a job and stuff like that. And except this one is not, it's not a shonen thing. It's more like a shoujo. It's more like it's like for women. Like the target audience is clearly for women, and it's clearly it's less dramatic. It's less intense. Like there's no like big moments where the character dies or whatever. It's like more like easy reading, and I like it because it's more like easy reading. And the thing is, we have a lot of fighting, and Devil's a Part-Timer is like a fighting, and there's power, struggles and everything. He works at McDonald's and stuff like that. This one is the Great J shall not be defeated. She was like the Hell's number 2, but as the series goes on, they don't really seem to be that bad. Like they're kind of just evil to each other, not really to humans or anything. And it starts off with the prologue. The whole entire Dark Realm gets destroyed by a magical girl. And then the Great J comes back. Yeah, there it is. And she gets in our world. She loses all of her magic, which means she's like a little girl in her normal form. And she found a mana crystal. Her thing is she's trying to hunt down mana crystals, and that gives her power. And the more mana crystals she has, the more power she has. And the main mana crystal allows her to change back because of its magic to her like normal form, which is like a teenager, like 18 or something like that. Or early 20s, whatever it is, and then but she uses that to get a job, so she can work at a restaurant, and then she has a landlord who kind of always is always after for the rent, the usual thing you have in these shows. And then the thing is, it's a really interesting story because in the Dark Realm, when she was in the second in command, she was really spoiled, very cruel to everyone. She had everything she ever wanted. And basically, the trope is kind of like melting the Ice Queen. A lot of the early stories, anyway, begin with showing reminding us that she was the second in command of the Dark Realm, and she used to have anything she wanted. Like she used to bathe in like the most luxurious of baths with the most luxurious of elixirs and bath salts and things. And then it'll cut to her in today's world, washing herself in a bathtub, or like a not like even a tub, kind of like a pan, like a wash tub you wash clothes in or something. And then it's in her sink because she's so small and stuff like that. So barely anything. It's cold water, not even hot, that sort of thing. And then she used to eat exquisite feasts, but now she's barely scraping by and eating like the most cheap of ramen or something. She can barely even cook. So it's at one point it's kind of a comedy mostly, but it's also the fact that she used to be spoiled and uncaring and callous. And then in this realm, she doesn't have any of that. And she has to learn to be humble. And she has to learn to deal with things when they're not going her way. And also the flaw comes in because I kind of equate to Frasier in this sense, and that comedy really ensues when the character has a very overt flaw. If you've seen Frasier, Frasier is like very stuck up. He's very elitist. He's a good guy, but he's very elitist. He's very like pompous and everything. And a lot of comedy comes in from him being embarrassed because his pomposity is like, I got to be the best. I got to be the most dignified. It's all big about dignity and pride and being the best of the best of the best. And there's a lot of episodes of Frasier where they're trying to get into like some elite club or something, and then getting embarrassed. This one, her flaw is pride. So she actually has an underling who actually made it to the Dark Realm, who made it to our world as well. But instead of coming into our realm and then getting a job as a waitress and scraping by, she's actually became like a CEO or something like that. And it became like a millionaire and has like a ton of people and employees and is finding like whole entire rooms and truckloads of mana crystals. Fortunately for Jay, she's a very loyal servant and a downright masochist and just really wants to be demeaned and talked down to by Jay. And just looks up to Jay a lot. But the thing is, so Jay will come to her and it's like, oh, the answer to their problems is here. She's a loyal servant who's powerful in this world and can help her out. But then the servant is immediately jumping to conclusions of how great Jay is. Like, oh, obviously you're making a disguise and you're doing great. You're getting all this stuff done. And then Jay is so embarrassed by the fact that she is not in a great shape at all. She's just living in a poor house and living like below poverty lines and stuff like that. That she commonly lies to her lackey, to her former lackey, and tries to trick her former lackey and lie to her and say that, oh yeah, I'm doing great, it's amazing, this is all part of my plan and everything. So where she could easily say, hey, I'm down and out, I need some help, could you help me? And then of course the servant would easily go, yes, I will help you, here's millions of dollars, here's a house, here's everything you ever wanted. Jay puts her pride first, and so rather than asking the employee for help and revealing to her employee that she's in dire straits, she always comes up with lies after lies after lies, saying how great off she is and how much she hasn't going and how much she's planning and stuff like that. And then she stays in her hovel essentially. And it happens over and over again. And each story, it kind of hits on the same thing where Jay just really wants to be appreciated. She just wants to be admired again, like she was in the Dark Realm, to the point where she actually just shows off for a kid. Like she's like a normal, like when she's depowered, she's like a kid. She's like a grade schooler. So she eventually makes a friend who's also a grade schooler. And there's one part where the friend like, oh, I saw this magical girl and she's awesome. And of course, Jay hates magical girls because she destroyed her home. And she goes, no, I'm cooler than the magical girl. So she does all these things to impress her the girl, impress her friend. And to the point where I can transform too. It's like a magical girl. She transforms into her normal shape, which is like, the 20-year-old Jay. And then she goes, oh, the magic girl could lift a rock. And then Jay like lifts a rock. It's like, oh, look, see, I can lift the rock too. And then it turns out fine. Like the girl is very impressed. Like, oh, Jay, you're the coolest ever. But that the mana crystals only have so much magic per day. So when the mana crystal wears off, she's just stuck as a little kid and can't go to the job that day. So it's like, I can't work today. I can't turn to my normal self. Yeah, there's her friend. It's right there. So it's a really interesting series. Very, very easy. There's like it's very easy reading. It's like comedies, silly situations. It's like kind of the Devil's a part-timer, but for women as the main target audience. But it's still pretty good. It's still have cool situations. You get funny moments. You get serious character moments. There's a part where the magic girl comes back, and then you see that she's also kind of sympathetic because she's actually a hero. She's actually a good guy. And the thing is, when you have a mana crystal and you're just a normal human, like you befall on like a lot of misfortune befalls you, and the magical girl takes the crystal away from Jay because Jay finally found this really big one. And then the magical girl finds it. She doesn't know it's Jay. She doesn't know it's a bat. She's from the Dark Realm, but she finds it, steals it, and then a lot of bad stuff happens to her. But she doesn't give up the mana crystal because she keeps saying, really bad stuff, like getting hit by a truck. and having like walls fall on you and stuff like that. So if she weren't a magical girl, she'd probably be dead. And then she gets up and goes, it's better that I take this misfortune than some innocent person. And like, oh, she's not a bad guy. They didn't make her like a jerk hero, like from The Boys or something. They actually made her. She's actually a good guy who wants to do the right thing. She just destroyed the Dark Realm. That's kind of it. And the only reason why she's a bad guy is because she opposed Jay. But we see later that she's kind of an outcast at school because she doesn't fit in. And her main thing is that she really just wants to help out people to the point where she'll take being hit by a car. And she'll take all these horrible things happening to her, like deadly things happening to her. If only she could stop this misfortune from befalling someone innocent. So no one will ever cry tears of suffering again. So I like the fact that they also made her a good person. Really cool stuff. I really like this series. It's a lot of fun to read. It's very easy reading so far as I've seen in the manga. And it also has some good messages in there about the prim and proper haughty princess that was Jay, who was like the second in command. Now seeing her having to deal with what it's like to be on the bottom tier, on the bottom rung, having to put up with things that, how to live without the things that she used to have. And it's a very much of a defrosting of the Ice Queen. It's pretty cool stuff. I really like the series.
It is a popular manga. I have seen it throughout the websites I've actually gone through. I've never read it, but I have time in the day sometimes to check out new things and read some new stuff. It's hard though because there's so much content, and I literally have like 10 or 11 tabs open sometimes of manga I've discovered or might be interesting or people recommend, or the new monthly episode of The Skeleton Can't Protect the Cave or whatever came out. So I got to read this giant, long South Korean manhwa. It's like, 40 pages long, and you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. It takes like, 30 minutes to read. So there's lots of great stuff out there. It seems like you haven't mentioned any of the fall release or the winter coming up. You're all just like the past year, in fact. But that's great. That's good, because all the Spy X family, that's been really big, blew up this year. I
started reading that one too. I didn't get really too much into that one, but I am familiar with some of the storyline.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, it's there. I know it's good. I just haven't had time. And there's all kinds of stuff like that. There's even one, I saw one of Secret of Mana, or The Legend of Mana, which is based off a video game, which is from like 20 years ago. And
oh yeah, I remember that one.
I tried watching it and I was like, this is shit. This is horrible. How could they do this? Not to say the storyline in Legend of Mana was brilliant. It was cutesy and silly, but it's just so, everything just clumps together, and it's like, this is not a story. This is not working. But the what I would recommend, if it's a little bit of everything, has a lot of moments. It's called The Eminence in Shadow, and there is a manga for it as well. And they even had the most recent episode match the first episode, or maybe the first episode of the anime, which is weird. It's like, what happened? How did you, and why did you do it that way? But it's, once you become popular, I guess, once you become an anime, the manga is like, all right, let's sort of connect the dots and tie it in randomly somehow.
Tie it in together, yeah. What Marvel and DC refuse to do.
Well, yeah, I know. Obviously, it's a little goofier. In one of the episodes, where if you read the manga, it's like, okay, how did he grow 3 times muscle mass by flexing? I don't understand. And then you watch the anime, it's like, he doesn't do that in the anime. What the hell? So they have a lot more freedom in the manga to do whatever the heck they want visually.
This is why I went with manga rather than like watch Redo of Healer or watch Great J. I was like, I'd rather read. Surprise. I like to read sometimes.
You know what? I like to do, I know it's weird because when you get an adaptation, it's still episode by episode, it should be at least, from the manga. So compare that to, I just read a book, Never Let Me Go, which was turned into a film like 10 years ago by a Japanese UK author about clones growing up in a school and donating their organs as they grow up. Very tragic story, but
sounds cool.
Yeah, I had no idea it was a movie until the friend I'm reading it with a book club says, "Oh, this came out in like 2012 or whatever." It's like, oh, interesting. But it's not about sci-fi. It's not about dystopian worlds. It's about kids in school growing up, and the ending. They're going to die. So it's like, okay, the drama surrounding their personal lives and all the classic stuff that you would want in a story isn't there for the first half of the book. I'm actually going to post the review when my friend puts it on his channel, but it's like, I hate this thing. It's so like nothing's. It's just slice of life, like just kids doing nothing, and then you get to the halfway point, and you're like, oh, there's the world
just
building.
Took a turn.
Yeah. Oh, this is why you're dying. This is what happened, and why this school life is important to you, and why people were stealing your art. And that's the problem with writers who don't know what they're doing. But there's also writers who break the rules for a good reason. And luckily, I hate to say that, whenever it gets better, it does in fact get better. And I don't recommend it because of that, because the average reader would be like, this is crap. But
it's like a
slow burn. Yeah, exactly. That's another way of putting it. It builds up to where it's going, but it doesn't feel that way. And you don't know how good the author is until he starts resolving things like, oh, he's resolving all the plot lines. Thank you. And then you go, this guy knows what he's doing. But it takes so long to get there. And we're talking like a novella. So not for everyone. But if you like reading and you like this weird, semi-dystopian, not really sci-fi, I think it's called alternative setting, alternative fiction, where the world of the 80s and the 90s, like this is like technology from 70s to the 90s, roughly as a setting, and people are like playing tapes as opposed to records. And obviously they've figured out cloning, and they've solved medical problems like cancer by, taking out people's organs. So
makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, I guess the world would change, and we just keep adopting cloning and keep using bodies. And if you know anything about medical science, this is complete nonsense. But if you want to make a dystopian world with that sort of setup, why not? Cool beans. Anyway, that's the one I recommend, Eminence in Shadow. It's a very, very funny manga because the guy he just wants to be a background character. So he purposely gets killed or makes it look like he gets killed, and he has no plan, but everyone thinks he's a super genius, and he has this whole organization because he uttered a sentence to some girl he saved. So she makes a whole organization based off him, and you're just like, okay. So there's lots of moments like that, but then there's lots of serious moments and dramatic moments, and of course it's isekai, so there's magic, and there's people with huge fight scenes. So there's the power trips and all the comedy and drama, and the manga is, well, a little different, but fun to watch. I have a bunch of others I watch that are goofy, but not worth mentioning. Anyway, that was almost half an hour. Thank you so much, LiteratureDevil. Thank you for your time. This is part 1, so we'll be having more content tomorrow with a whole bunch of different people you might not have heard of the past year or two, talking about different things from video games to comics to movies to maybe even cooking. I don't know yet. We'll figure that out.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I know. All of our weird 500 or 100th episodes, we do weird stuff. So, but that gives me some more time to free up my schedule, so I might be able to pop on Morning Nonsense. Who knows?
Very cool.
That'd be
very
great.
Cool.
And then we could talk about stupid manga and anime we hate.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have yourself a great evening. We'll talk to you real soon. See you.